listening to the Bomb Hole.
Bomb Hole Podcast.
It's going to be very hot. It's going to be very uncomfortable for everybody.
The Bomb Hole.
I'm gonna slide down them big hills, you know what I mean, on the big, nice burgundy snowboard.
Okay, here we go again. We are back in the booth at the Bomb Hole. It's going to be a spicy one today. The Bomb Hole is presented by Liquid Death and Pub Beer. Now, Stony Buds, how we doing, my dog?
So good, my dog.
Always love hearing that. To my left, we have Mr. Aaron Draplin. Draplin, what's happening?
I'm in Utah amongst the Wasatch Warriors. I'm high on coffee and superstition and history, on lore. Always am when I come through the great Salt Lake City. Thinking about friends, you know, who might not be with us here anymore. There's a new attachment when I come through the city now. But I'm here. But before we get going, sorry to do this, but there is a bit of a PSA I have to address.
Okay, we're getting into a PSA.
Well, listen, just... Can I get a word in here? So listen, there's some housekeeping. There's a purple PT Cruiser triple park to Dingo LLC. It's out in the parking lot. Dingo, okay. And then beyond that, I just have some beef to bring up with some of your previous guests while I'm here. I've got the mic. James Jackson, I'm still alive, James. I'm still alive. Mikey LeBlanc, I love every little bit of you, Mikey LeBlanc. I love every little bit of you. Russ Winfield, hello, beautiful. And to Todd Richards, 1995 called, and they want their dingleberry flip back in the old U-pipe, okay? So, Todd, if you could look into that, please. Okay, let's get going, guys.
Wow. That was amazing.
Draplin hit the ground
running. I went through the grid and made sure they had all business, all business settled and scores settled.
All right, we're back to square one. We're settled up.
I was listening to this bullshit till 3 a.m. last night. Todd Richards and LeBlanc. Pretty cool.
Well, for those of you guys who are unfamiliar, which most of you probably aren't, but Draplin is a designer / artist. He got his start in snowboarding with companies like Union, Grenade, things like that. He's an absolute juggernaut of the design world. He has his own, he's independent, and he has his own company, Draplin Design Co. And he's landed huge jobs with Obama, Ford, Nike, the list goes on. He's an absolute leyenda, which is Spanish for legend.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, juggernaut. I'd say juggernaut of the design world. Absolute juggernaut. And now he's sitting talking with us. So this is going to be a fun little banter excursion.
Thank you for saying that nice stuff. Yeah, it's been wild. You know, to be with the shreds, it's pretty cool because I don't have a lot of connection to this stuff anymore, right? So to come in, I was told by buddies, Bridges, do the Bomb Hole, and now I get to do it. So I was driving, I'm going to see my mom, right? In Idaho, I saw my buddy Bart, had lunch at his restaurant. Here, I'm coming to do this, If I go through Denver, I'll go see a guy I'm working for, And each stop, I have friends in Omaha, right? And friends in Iowa and friends in Chicago, Field Nuts in Chicago. So I just wanted to, I know, last second, hey, I'm coming to town. Last time we spoke on the old text, come and do it, and we'll make a patch and a bunch of other shit. I said, yes, of course, because I like what you guys are doing. I like that, people can start these things in a weird time where, not as many people are reaching out. Sometimes you just got to go make it on your own, and you're doing it. So whatever number I am, it's awesome because, yeah. So thanks.
Appreciate it. Unfortunately, we just 69 came out not too long ago, so that was a sought after one. So,
sometime
we're a little bit past that now. So let's just dive right into getting your foot, sharpening your teeth, we'll call it, in the design world, and specifically with snowboard brands. What was the first snowboard brand that you worked with?
Solid Snowboards. Solid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
With Kurt Wastel in them.
Yeah. Kurt and Jeff, and it was a connection from a guy named Matt Hale that I grew up with in Traverse City. So, to kind of set the stage for how I would have got that little hole shot, it's simply Matt Hale. But where that, we went to, I'm class of 91, he's class of 90. So when we're kids in Traverse City, Michigan, the first wave goes out in 86, 87, 88, with all the Sims boards and all that kind of funny, shit. And they all go to Breckenridge, Colorado. So that's the first wave of kids from the Midwest, and we hear the lore. Now, I'm still 10th grade, 11th, 9th grade and stuff. So we hear these stories as skateboarders and then, of course, snowboarders in the winter. So Matt moves west because he's got an opportunity with Wave Rave, and then somewhere this Solid thing comes out of this. And by the time it was my turn to go out there at 19, I got out of school at 17 and 91, right? And I was going to go to Breckenridge, just go because Tarquin Robbins was ruling the world there. All the ride guys were getting out there from the magazines and all this cool stuff. And I was going to go, but my mom and dad just kind of said, listen, we didn't get to go to any sort of college, and you can go to a community college here, and you're just too young. You're 17. Well, friends were. I stayed back. When it was my turn at 19, we all went to, even in that 2 years, we had gone out to Summit County a couple times. A lot of friends went there. We kept going, and a buddy had a shot out in Bend at Mount Bachelor. And I was my buddy Derek Denoyer, and that was enough to get us to Oregon, and sort of change my life, right? So we get to Oregon, and we're snowboarders and scumbags, and we got season passes, and we're riding Bachelor. We're up there in the the first snow. Now listen, I know you fucks were raised on champagne, champagne powder up here or whatever it is. I know we were raised on horse shit. Okay, I mean somewhat, literally. Like we didn't have this in our backyard like you guys did. So anything was cool out west. Everything was okay and exciting. So we went the first day it snowed. Dangerous as shit. Took our old boards, carved them up with all that cinder cone. We just didn't know, so you learn real quick, right? That first winter out there, Matt puts my name in with Solid Snowboards. And, they're a bunch of kids too. I was 19. Neil Rankin gave me a shot, and I got to do a graphic for Jeff Wastel. All the guys who were jumping around this little mystery machine, little Ford van thing, those were my roommates, climbing on partitions in our apartment to get the right angle, and we'd take a snap, and I'd draw it. And I got my first published graphic.
I remember that clear as day.
Really?
Yeah. I had no idea you did
Kurt's
that.
got it on his tattoo.
Yeah, he has the tattoo.
So then you get to meet the Wastel brothers. Then you get to meet Dave Tuck. And then one of our heroes from my town, Matt Hale, who's making it. He's a pro. He had a model too. The hardest thing about all this shit is to look back and realize how small it all was, because it just didn't feel like that to us. When I got my second winter out west, when I got to go through the cage at Solid and Fairplay, which was some Daryl, some dipshit just grabbed us shit. Mm-hmm. That was my first hookup. I had arrived. I shared it with all the guys we were moving out west with. It was really big to us. It really meant a lot. So I remember, in the spring of 1994, we'd already been out west. We had learned to ride POW, and we went up to Mount Baker, and I saw some AM rep rider something on the Solid go by. We're in the lift line, and he was going around to the whatever. I'll never forget it. I was so high. I got to make something that was real, right? I had a couple years of college, that kind of showed you the introduction to this stuff. But that was like stiff jobs. This was like for a cool new school, jibbing, jabbing, whatever the fuck they call it, jibbing company, cool things, You get to know the Wastels. To this day, the sweetest group of people who've been through so much shit. You learn all this stuff. Someone that a friend from high school, with Hallie, with Jeff, they were kind of family to all this stuff. And to go see those guys be, Kurt rule, he ripped, and then be so down to earth. We got to go travel with them a little bit, remember, everything was cool to us. We weren't grading anything. We were down for whatever. So
yeah, when you're coming from the Midwest, all of a sudden you got your logo on a snowboard brand and all those types of things. It's got to be just that so damn exciting.
For a kid from Massachusetts, is it going to Vermont? Is one of the first pinnacles.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So that's where you kind of make it there. Yeah. But then you go. Then they realize. I remember I got a job offer one time in Vermont, and I had to tell the guy, I don't know, man. It's cool and all, fun places to eat, and it's beautiful, but fucking no way I'm moving back, because it was already past the sort of it was during what we went. I don't drink a lot. In fact, I don't even drink coffee. But today, just to get into the spirit of this thing, I'm high as shit on this stuff, by the way, here in the Wasatch. But when I got to work for Snowboarder, I got to go to the U.S. Open. You know who went to the fucking U.S. Open? People who trained. kids who had sponsorships. We heard about it. We saw it in magazines and parties and bullshit. And in 2001, I got to go. And I roomed with Dave Englund.
Oh, wow.
And I remember telling him, this is jackass time, right? And I told him, if I wake up with your balls on my face, I'm going to bite first. And then we'll work it out after. If you fucking hit me with something, I'll kill you. Whatever I told him, something. Because they were like making all this fun shit. He's Dave Englund. That's the word. I got to go to the U.S. Open, see it all, see how small it is, and realize one of my little snowboardy dreams, and this is already 7 years after I moved west. I was already over it. I had done it when it counted when you're 19 to 24, right? When it was, this thing. And to go, I remember the first person that I met in Vermont, we fly out there on the Snowboarder magazine dime. I'm with Bridges, maybe it was me and Baker and Dave Englund in a rental car coming out of Boston or something. And we pull into some lot up at Stowe or whatever that was. Is it Stowe where the
Stratton.
Sorry. We pull in this lot at Stratton. And the first guy, we asked for directions to find something called the Green Room or something, some bar.
Yeah, that's the
Meet
bar.
all the dudes. Jake Burton.
Oh, wow.
So I'm in the rental driving, and we pull up, and I look to the fellows, and I go, now, how about that for service or something? I looked, and I say, well, excuse me, which way? It was Jake Burton getting done with the day. And, I don't drink much, and I was hammered the whole time. Yeah. Because there wasn't a lot. I wasn't going to go ride, We were there to hike up and down and, do the whistles and see all the, we were covering it and stuff. But I was a graphic designer. I'll be dealing with it in a month, right? I was there just to be with the crew and see it, and it was, see, those little moments right there. That's why I took the job at Snowboarder, because I just knew that I would be able to realize a lot of these things that I was only privy to hear about, from people in it.
How old are you when you were working at Snowboarder?
I started at 27.
Oh, kind of a little bit of late bloomer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like I said, came out west in 93. I was 19.
Yeah.
So 5 winters of hitting it pretty hard at Bachelor, and then traveling all over the West. One time at Snowbird with some buddies. A couple times at Mount Baker, handful of times at Jackson Hole, whatever we could afford. We would get our pass, and it was anything past that was hiking because we just didn't have anything.
Those 5 years at Bachelor, you were just straight shredding.
Yeah, we were riding with
living the dream.
Well,
as they say.
yeah, and I mean that's one thing I was thinking about coming in here. It's like I know you're still doing it, man. Okay, you filmed it, and I'm sure I've never seen you snowboard. You know what I mean, but for us just to keep up with some of these characters at Bachelor, that was enough for me. Just to keep up. Just
the
to
Dirksons, who we talking?
Dirksen, Eggy, Sipnewski. Mm-hmm. But those are the hot shit things. I have to mention J.D. Platt because these are names that, who are the heroes of our town? My little adopted town of Bend, Oregon. Well, Chris Jameson, and you'd hear these different names because you'd see them in Morrow ads and you'd see them in, local regional ads or whatever. So I get there, and that first winter, we didn't know any of those characters. We were a bunch of hayseeds right off the boat, and then you have to get to know people, right? So I got to know those guys, but it's not like I was running with those guys. The guys I came out there with, Derek and Bry. Derek was a regional rider. My buddy Bry was a bit of a regional rider back in Michigan. These guys had some talent, but the pursuit wasn't the same. When you go out and you case it off a big jump and fuck yourself up, the West becomes real. We didn't grow up with that. People got hurt, right? It's big out here. And that sobered some people up real quick. It's one thing back on that dust on crust back home to have a thing and have a representation and go contests and stuff and things. So I quickly understood. Like I said, you're still doing it. That is the fucking best. How old are you?
I don't like to say it on air very often, but 34 years old.
Okay, well, enjoy your youth. God damn it. So, okay, 47. So whatever. It's what that just puts into perspective. That 5 years ago that was when I was starting, at least at the magazine. So for you or something. So, I was okay with just being around it.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to get in with a crew. I wasn't trying to I remember one time I went out with Quinn Shields and a couple other guys in town, and I got a photo, and they put it in Snowboarder magazine.
You got published.
I got published, man.
How hyped were you on that? Holy
well,
shit.
of course, but it was the Bros Not Pros.
Oh,
and it was
sweet.
talking about me going back to school. And my buddy wrote it from Eric Campbell. My buddy wrote it from back home, wrote this thing. And, my best buddy from high school, a guy to this day still rides all the time, still rips. I think he's still got his front side rock down, skateboarding. He's 48 years old and he's still doing it. Eric Campbell comes out here, and does all sorts of adventures, still healthy enough, right? Well, yeah, but I'm losing my little train of
Loving your stories.
Yeah, we were on a little bit. I'm not exactly sure what direction we're going with that, but I like it.
So just take me back to, what was the question again? I'll get it.
This question, I think, started with your first.
What was your first job in the snowboard industry?
Yeah, we went to Solid, which was,
was
around 93,
I'll cinch it up with this. I saw guys go and become something. Dirksen, Eggy. They had this inherent talent that could just go bigger than everybody. Andrew Crawford, the first time I saw Andrew Crawford ride, was like, he just has some little extra spring in his step. Mm-hmm. He's a fucking crazy animal too, and an intellectual, right? A science nerd.
He works at NASA now.
Fuck yeah, he does. I mean, that kid. I remember pulling him out of a fist fight. He was a fiery little guy, But to see that, it was like sobering to be like, what, I don't need to go try to do that. My physical, whatever, it was just enough to go hit these jumps, ride the berms, learn how to go off a jump and suck your butt up, and then, I guess grab Indy and then just fall back and land and ride, because that's what Alistair did. This one guy that didn't have a big name at Bend, but he had the best style, right? He could go the biggest in the pipe.
Alistair Schultz?
Yes, yeah. The biggest I ever saw someone go at Mount Bachelor was probably Sipnewski, I think, was the biggest I saw. The biggest I ever saw anyone ever go in a pipe, Lael Gregory.
Nice.
The biggest. I don't even know how. 16 feet? Just motherfucker. That was up in Mount Hood. He was a bud from Bend, but anyway. Yeah.
Okay, buds, I think it's time for the bomb hole of the week, I believe.
It is, Chris. You are right. We're going to be talking about Volcom's patented Zip Tech technology jacket to pant interface.
Okay, I love that.
Chris, what happens when you're out there snowboarding?
Well, generally, I'm usually eating shit all over the mountain, generally just getting destroyed. If it's a powder day, generally tomahawking, pinwheeling, ragdolling, a lot of that type of stuff.
All of that type of stuff. No matter your skill level, that's what's going to happen. I mean, I used to wear all cotton out there. They called me the cotton kid. Mm-hmm. And thanks to Volcom, I got some better outerwear on me. And they have the Zip Tech interface, which allows a zipper in your powder skirt to attach to the waist of your pants, creating a barrier to the elements. And what's that going to do for me, boss?
Well, you know what they say, bud? Cotton kills. If that cotton gets wet underneath, you can get really cold and hypothermia potentially.
That's a true story, and this is going to keep you dry all day and keep you out on the slopes longer. What's great about this is it works with the youth, with the adult, and the woman's gear, and it also works with an older jacket to one of their new pants or vice versa. Great technology.
So hypothetically, you could go 5XL pants, youth small jacket, and it would work? Okay, love that.
I've tried that too.
It's an interesting fit.
And no matter what, it keeps you dry, no matter which system you're zipping together.
Okay, perfect.
Stay dry, stay out longer. Want to use hashtag volcombombproof and show us your favorite bail on Instagram. And what's going to happen?
One of the Volcom riders is going to pick a winner. You're going to get a couple bomb hole goods. You're going to get some Volcom goods.
So hashtag volcombombproof at the bomb hole at Volcom Snow is what you're going to do to be entered in the bomb hole of the week.
Buds, let's talk about Brighton Resort.
One of my favorite resorts in the world. Actually, my favorite resort.
It's a great resort. If you're looking to do some snowboarding in Utah, go ahead and pick up your Brighton Pass before October 11th because the prices go up after that. Again, before October 11th, pick up your Seasons Pass. It's one of the best places in the world. They're sponsoring the Bomb Hole Cup. We're actually going to have a Bomb Hole wall ride this year at the resort, and it's a good mountain full of good people. So make sure you support Brighton. Get up there, get those powder days, get those park days, have a good time with your friends.
For generations, this mountain has brought us some of the best riders in the world, too. So, good place to get up there and cut your teeth, as they say. Brighton, let's do this.
Okay, well, I want to keep hammering. We have so much stuff to talk about. I'm going to keep hammering on some design stuff here because for people that aren't familiar, Grenade, Union, Snowboarder Mag, Snowboard Mag, Cobra Dogs, Nike Air Max, Drinkwater logo. All these logos are yourself. But one in particular that I think is like especially embodies Draplin Design Co. Your style is the Union logo. Oh man, let's talk Union.
Oh man, let me get a word in here. Union Binding, everybody. Union Binding Company. Their 2022 line comes out this next. I just miss my brothers George Kleckner and Martino. That's the first thing that comes to mind when I think about it. I miss my family. I spent 12 years with those guys. I miss them every day. I miss Brad Chaffel every day from Cole. I miss him every day because, this isn't just a job and a retainer and a paycheck and things and stuff. It was invention. It was risk. It was brotherhood. It was opportunity to travel and shit. So I got to do so much with those guys. So yeah, Union, when that thing happened, Martino knew how to make the binding. Like I still don't even really know the story because you have to understand when I get back into this stuff at 27 at the magazine, it's kind of with one eye open because I'd already went out west and rode and hit jumps with some of them, some of the best, and that was enough for me. But I was okay going back to Minneapolis in 98 to just say, I'm not going to use the word dude anymore. Like there is a big world off the hill, right? And we just were that's all we knew was that community. So when I went back to Minneapolis, I saw everything else. And then when it was going back to the magazine, it was always with an asterisk of like, guys, there's a whole other world outside of this. So when Union comes to me, that's something completely new that we get to go and chart the course. So we took a look at all the bindings. We took a look at all the Burtons. Of course, they were the biggest of the big dogs, right? And you just kind of say, like, what are opportunities? And one of the colors was like orange because we can just make it ours. So like brand and brand DNA. And forgive me, I don't know how to talk about this stuff, but it's like, how do you go and make this little movable, pliable little bundle of company, right? It's like color, a logo that is going to be able to stamp and press into leather, plastic, embroider it, put on a guy's sweatshirt on you, put on a banner that you put up on a thing at a company. It has to work at the size of a Learjet and then down to your pinky fingernail, right? That's branding. Where I learned that wasn't from Burton or some shit. I learned it from Delta Airlines. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, see, Mark Sullivan, may the sun shine light on Mark Sullivan's asshole today, whatever that means. Mark Sullivan, my brother, Mark, one time I remember saying, he's the Terry Hawkinson of something. And I just was like, we have to think bigger, Mark. We need to go a little bit. Maybe it could be the Bill Gates of something, whatever that is. And because that's the only world we knew, right? And I got this taste back in Minneapolis. So, yeah, shit. Now I'm going off the deep end. Well, to just have the ability to start Union that way, to have the ability, the opportunity to start Cole the way we did, knowing Brad, like I was getting to know him, he wasn't this harsh kind of guy. He was soft and mellow and very articulate in his style, not to mention his snowboarding too. Like he had a very fluid kind of thing going on, right? And to be able to kind of come in under his guidance and start this thing, those are rare instances. And then be within snowboarding where you're comfortable, the language, the people, your heart, is just, you're excited to say, damn, what if a kid doesn't want Burton? Well, we can make an alternative and talk about it a different kind of way. So I am super, super proud of that. And I miss those guys. It's a very successful thing all these years later, but it didn't get successful the way I saw Forum get successful. It didn't get successful the way I saw, I don't even remember the names. When I immersed myself in this stuff and got to see it all up close in Southern California, D.C. is exploding. Still probably is. But there was so much money and things and stuff and shit. Like I was just way more interested in Stepchild because that's what I remember as a kid. I was way more interested in Joyride than I was Burton. Burton were like athletes. Who didn't love all that shit? Every catalog, every caption, we studied all of it. But when I got out of high school, there were things starting to happen that were like sketchy. So Solid was one of those things, but Joyride was like, that was like a skateboard company even, So, to start that thing up, it's like, how do you be a business and have logistical sort of to not fuck it all up? I saw a lot of companies start big and then kind of go away. to have the crew at C3, Johans and Bubs and stuff behind Marty and Martino making this thing, and then George reaching out to all the right riders, and then they could put it in my lap and say, okay, how do we present this to the world? It's a rare, chance. So I'm just so proud of that shit. I miss those guys, and I just don't know. Like, when you go into Milo, is the Union display as big as Burton's? Fuck yeah, it is, right?
Yeah, they're crushing. They're crushing.
Well, we had to build it. We had to make the things. But see, that was all very tentative. And when I say they didn't, if they're really good now, awesome. Because that means
they're great.
But it just means that they're supporting Martino and his family and George and his family and all the people that come underneath that, right? When we started, it was 3 of us, pretty much, and then George would reach out to a rider and maybe get Danny Cass. It's a big name back in 2004, and we'd have to make the ads. But it's just us, And then of course you start to see all the people he has in Italy. I got to go to Italy a number of times to work, and that was amazing. I'm a kid from Michigan, right? So I miss it. I miss that sort of like being so close to the bone. We didn't have any budgets, but I don't think it looked that way.
Totally.
I like what you said about Forum being built one way and Union being built more like a blue-collar brand built on quality. And you had the forethinking to make the logo a certain way instead of just a hype machine.
Well, we were talking about, by the way, it was exciting to be around Forum. Like, all the guys were cool. You never even got to see JP Walker up close. He was like an enigma.
Yeah, absolutely.
You couldn't see him. He lived up here with you guys. I don't know, whatever. He was like a celebrity to me.
You don't see him. He is a mythical creature.
He is a mythical creature, yeah.
Okay, and then you would meet some of the characters that were building this thing. It was just a bunch of other dipshits like anything else, but they had money and things and stuff and hype and things and whatever. Okay, it was really exciting to be around all that. But it went away. Or it mellowed out. To see these guys say, we're not really interested in any of that. And there's something that Bob Gundrum told me from C3, Gumby, said, Draplin, if we even grow 1 or 2% a year, it's still growth. So really the thing there is bigger isn't always better, but good decision-making goes a long, 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 long way. So they weren't just deciding on funny little cake decorating like graphics. They were thinking about logistics, vendors, things, supply chains, and it's an art, all that stuff. So, to see them all these years later, last time I went to C3, it was like emotional for me because it was so big up there. And Johan was just like, that fucking Johan. I share October 15th with that son of a bitch. So that's just, touch the Johan button.
Let's give him a gunshot, maybe.
The Johan button.
Oh, that's a different soundboard.
To see what they've built it into and all the employees and all the just sort of efficiencies in there, it was very moving to me because I remember when it was just like the first crate came in, the first thing, came in, and it was like kind of like, it was like dicey, You know
what Johan said to me? Because I called doing my research. Hey, right after this, I got a guest question from George Kleckner we're going to get into.
Oh, is that so?
So, but one thing that Johan said that I thought was really, really special. The first thing he said, he goes, well, Draplin, he's an example of good things happen to good people. And
wow.
I thought that was just a very, very kind words and
wow.
Just that's. I mean, when you look where you're at, it's killer. It's killer. Now let's get into a guest question from George Kleckner. Here we go.
Hey, Bombhole. This is George from Union Bindings. I'm a huge fan of the show, and thanks Ethan and Chris for everything you guys are doing. I got a 2-part question for old Aaron Draplin. First question is, why is the Dachshund Wiener Dog the best dog from a design standpoint? I heard him say that once, and I never really figured out what the hell he was talking about. And the second question is, what does he have against Mark Wahlberg? He seems like a good guy to me. I don't know. But thanks for everything, and enjoy the show, guys.
Well, Mr. Kleckner, it's nice to have to hear you on a call-in. You can call the number anytime. You know the number. The number is. So, anytime, George. Okay, first answer, the Dachshund. The king of the breeds. The king of the breeds, you guys. All dogs. I don't know. You got a couple of rat dogs running around. I can hear them out there breathing and hissing and whatever they're doing, humping things. But they all descended from Dachshunds. And what I was told was the reason a wiener dog is long was to go down the holes. They were bred this way to go after, ferrets and, nutrias and shit, whatever they were going after somewhere, over in Germany or whatever. But yeah, I think that's probably the answer. There were a lot of different answers. You know, Sacco de Pucci, that's a little just for something for Martino, which translates into flea bag of fleas or something. You know, Sacco de Pucci. First time I ever went.
Sacco de Pucci.
That's Italian, I'm guessing?
Well, the first time I ever went to, to sit and talk about it. I haven't talked about this in a long time. You know, I really get like misty because I miss my brothers, you know, and it's like, I got to go to Italy. That is pretty cool right there. And the first time I ever went there.
That's where Union's designed, right?
Yeah, up in
Marco.
Calico. That's Martino's up. Martino's up in Calico. And you know, when you go to that community, they made ski boots and things and plastic parts and stuff, you know, like, you know, DIN settings on fucking skis and stuff. I just mentioned it. That's the first one. There should be something here.
On the,
I have to beep that out.
I don't want to get into it, but I still hold a grudge. Look
at our skiing is easy bumper sticker up there.
Goddamn
Chris
poles,
Chris never skied before. Went and did a backflip first try.
Spider suits and shit. I am still pissed because I was there when snowboarding became a thing that wasn't allowed at the resorts, and when we would save our money and go and get to go have a night at somewhere. I remember a ski patrol guy taking his pole and going into the back of my calf. Like, get out of my fucking, yeah, I remember it, you know, and it was at Sugarloaf, and it was that little place in northern Michigan, and it was like.
Wounds. He's got some deep wounds.
Yeah,
Fuck
deep
you guys,
wounds,
man.
Pole. You got stuck with a pole.
Well, here's the deal. We went and made the mountain fun. Those guys were worried about banging gates and times and shit, and we made them like skateboarding, right? We were skateboarders in the summer, we were snowboarders in the winter. So George, the Dachshund, just a beautiful, you know, animal. I mean, they're wacky. And what I like about Dachshunds is like they're always illustrated, like for kids and stuff. Like
it's a great portrait.
It's a fun
side profile.
It's a fun dog for little kids to wrap their heads around, you know. And you know, I had a wiener dog named Gary for 5-6 years.
Solid name,
Gary.
Oh, he was a pile of shit. He really was. I mean, barking and pissing when you greet him and he'd pee. But also with the wiener dogs is they're compromised from their birth. The long dogs, basset hounds.
Lowriders. They're
lowriders. Yeah. All those
back
dogs
issues.
They have back issues, and his little back went out, you know. And I still feel really guilty for that because, you know, my buddy's got some dog, I don't know, Marley or some shit. No, you don't say. You named him Marley. You don't say. You know, whatever. You know, after going to many a ski town and going to many a ski town. You know, when I quit snowboarding, I'll tell you the story. I was in Telluride. And we were coming down from we were just out there because we got a free ride from Bend. This is 98, spring of 98. We got a free ride to Telluride. We go out there with my buddy Chad, and one of the guys was trying to compete, Louis Fountain. So we load up a box van, and we have a free ride in the box van. So we're going to go, ride a couple days at Telluride. Tickets were like $90.
Only gotten worse.
I know. But see, that's when I would run into the world that we didn't see at Bachelor. You know, when you went, I remember going to Jackson Hole, and it was $60. And that was still a lot to us. But we were at Telluride, and I saw, he was there for some kind of a half pipe thing or something. And we were up there loitering. And I saw a mom yelling at her kid to get to snowboard practice in some kind of a fur thing. She was on skis, and the kid, like little Shaun White kid looking thing, you know. And I just that was enough for me. I didn't see that world out west. Who trained? Who cares about who goes the highest? It's about having us all together in a Subaru just to go up to the hill together. So that day, I just said, I'm fucking done with this. And I remember it was, Telluride isn't that crazy. And I didn't even buckle in from that point. Wherever we were at the mid-mountain to get down, I just skated down, foot on the whatever in between the bindings. I just skated down, and I got to the bottom, and I just was like, I'm done with this shit. And I hiked into Telluride downtown. And there's this place there called Baked in Telluride. It's like baked goods. And as I was walking up with my board, I go, you watch. I'm going to walk in, and Bob Marley's going to be playing. I love Bob Marley. I got all the records. But motherfucker, if it's playing, I'm done with this shit. So I'm tempting the fates. And I walk in, and it's all boom, boom, fuck, I'm done with this. Didn't even go into the place. Fuck this shit. I'm done. I got out west. I hit the jumps. I'm done. Fuck it. I go to a little internet cafe, check my mail, and I learned that I got accepted to the Minneapolis College of Art and Design 10 minutes after that. So that's when the next phase starts. But George, second part.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's still...
Mark Wahlberg.
You told an interesting story about when you saw him in Las Vegas. Do you want to tell that on air by chance?
Oh, in Los Angeles.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's in Los Angeles. I thought it
Yeah,
was in
well,
Los
you know
I
what?
hung with him in Las Vegas. That's
You
probably
know
why you
what?
have that mixed up.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure he does great things. I
See,
want to.
from Massachusetts. I'm actually a Marky
yeah,
Mark
that's right.
fan.
Well,
I'm a
of
Marky
course.
Mark fan.
I'm a fan.
I hate to say that.
Well, my
you know?
sister.
You know.
Well, we'll get into the fucking just dumb acting in a second. You know, just every face is just, you know, whatever. Hey, it's great. You know, overacting is the word that you guys need to go look up on your Google. But hey, I saw that they put a Wahlburger or whatever in Detroit. I'm cool with that. You know, I think that's what I saw. So one time we were dragged down to L.A. to go do an inspiration trip for Nixon. And what an incredible opportunity. You get to go stay at the Standard, and it's all cool on Melrose, I want to say, and you're in L.A., Hollywood bullshit, and you're with Nixon, and we went to, like, Fred Siegel to go see our Nixons at Fred Siegel, which, like, you know, that's when it was 2001 or 2, and it was the trucker hat craze, and Ashton Kutcher was making, like, these hats. They were $300 or $250 or some horse shit, and, you know, I'm there with a guy named John Goo Femister, right? Old skateboarder, old snowboarder, worked on MLY, M3, worked on Burton's, you know, out in Vermont. He helped start Gravis, helped start Nixon from the design side of things. Goo, who's probably wearing the same T-shirt he wore down there 20 years ago. He's that kind of guy. That shit doesn't matter to him, you know. That's why I loved him right away to be under his wing, right? So we go down there, we're just standing there shaking our heads at this shit like, how weird is all of this just plastic bullshit culture? You know, I mean, I'd already been past the snowboard thing because I'd worked at Snowboarder, all the trade shows, all the fun, the travel, and now I'm refined and I'm in Portland, Oregon. I'm working for this thing, Nixon, and you know, through Cinco. Well, that night was some big award show, and I remember we came in from one of these. We park, we give the guy the keys and say thanks and shit, and then you go into the hotel, and then you go through a lobby, and then you go into an elevator. And one of the times we went into the elevator, you know, I'm just on. Like in my little field notes, I remember I wrote all the names of the celebrities we saw. It's my first time in LA proper, right? So we saw, well, at least I lived down there, but we wouldn't go much. We'd go do a thing and then leave. So we're in LA at all these sort of spots. My first time, really. And I have this list of names. First time we go into the elevator, Spike Lee. And as gentle as I can, I say, Mr. Lee, thank you, I'm a big fan. And he goes, you know, just something, like a real small interaction. I'm not going to jump on him, but, you know, I don't know if I shook his hand. I just got to say thank you to one of my, you know, sort of heroes. Then we're leaving. We go up to the room and do whatever we're going to do, and we're going to leave back to the next thing. And I see, you know, there's this event going on. So there's all these things. Like, it turns out they come from their houses up in the hills, and then they stay at the thing so they can go party and go to like some theater and then come back to the thing so they don't have to get all messy up at their house. I think that's what we were told by Denena. I think is, you know, Chad Denena would told us that. I see this white Ferrari or something pull up, and you know, the crew we're with, you know, they're already kind of out the door, and everyone stops because someone's coming in. And I watched Marky Mark throw, you're not supposed to call him at that time either, throw his keys to the concierge or whatever that is, like he owned the fucking place. And I just was like, you know, you're supposed to say thanks. He might have. But I just watched him, and he just had these like sweatpants and shit on. Like he just walked in like he was glowing. And I just went, you know, watch this go by. Like he's just a person. If I was 29 at the time, maybe he was some close to that age. I don't know. And go through it, and I just went, hey, love that funky bunch. And he just went, you know, whatever. Fucking Mark boy. You know, and then be forced to have to watch him and like all these things just at that same that he's got. You know?
I haven't seen a Marky Mark movie that I didn't like.
Well, then good for you. But you know,
I met him in Las Vegas.
Was he cool?
He took us out to he let us get in his limo. He took us to the Titty Bar. Probably had the best night of my life.
Well, that's cool. I mean, that's
we had a line of the girls from Spearmint Rhino basically in line to come and meet us, and he'd be like, "Hey Stone, you need a bucket of beers? Like, how you doing, man? Hey Crystal, this is E Stone, my good bud. This is J2. And hung out with us all night. And we were gonna go back to the hotel and have a big party, and he passed out, and we basically had to carry him in and tuck him into bed.
And yeah, well,
and it was
Got him tucked in. Oh, okay.
he was an amazing dude. Basically, opened up the
well,
tab.
aren't I the asshole now, huh?
He basically was like one of the homies. He took like 20 of us out for the night of our lives.
Well, listen. I hope the $500 million he has in the bank goes to waking up at 2 a.m. like he does. And listen, he's probably a great, wonderful little human being. Just in that moment,
Yeah,
I watched Bobcat Goldthwait do
that guy.
say thank you to the guy,
Yeah.
somewhere else, and just was like, oh, and to this day, I mean, whatever, I listen.
Entitlement, basically, huh?
Well,
It's okay to not like somebody. We're okay.
well, I mean, but the thing is, as you get older, you realize it's like, man, that's just me with my guard up, like my guard up, like, man, it should be this way. No, there's no way. There's no time for it to be any other way. Who knows what he had to go do, to receive the award for the most dry acting of 2001. I mean, he won it, like, whatever.
He always plays the same character.
I know. Listen,
himself.
you know what? I mean, not everyone could be, goddamn Daniel Day-Lewis or something. I mean, someone
Snap.
that moves me, like Phil,
Yeah.
Seymour Hoffman, one of these creatures that, I watch, nevertheless, aren't I the asshole? I'm sorry, but
I might have just caught him on a good night.
Whatever.
He wasn't vibing with his crew,
if someone writes into this, this program here and says he was, then maybe I'm a little off. You meet these people, it's just, he certainly wasn't a hero of mine, but like, what if I met him and he was a piece of shit? That's happened to me, and you don't forget that stuff. It's like,
Yes.
you kind of got to. This sounds
Sticks with
weird.
you.
Well, this sounds weird, but I meet kids now who look up to what I do, and I got to be really careful because I've had guys yell in my face. I've had guys kind of push me. This is the real aggressive stuff. I've had guys start to cry. This one girl one time, they're all kids, right? This one kid one time, she very moved by what my thing, and you don't make fun of that. What do you do? And it was, and I got a primer from being able to go to the trade shows and meet some of these characters, like sitting with Jamie Lynn. That was one of my favorite riders. He's just a dude like the rest of us, but maybe with a bank account and magazine coverage and things. But he was kind of already over it at that point, 2002 or whatever. We were down there, but I sat with him and we just talked about it as two 29-year-olds or something. And I had his shit on my walls. That's just the best way to put it. I loved his style. I loved his art, all his things, that was really cool. So, when a kid comes to me now, it's like, I don't, first of all, you're not going to see me. I'm going to park the car. That's why when we would go to these, there's this thing called Adobe Max for software, Adobe software, you guys should look into it. It's drawing programs and Photoshop. Sorry. Well, every year they do this big Adobe Max conference, 15,000 people. It's awesome. And I've been able to speak there from the shittiest, crustiest side of things up to where I'm one of the names kind of now, right? And when you go to this thing, it's like, it's just this big deal. And you're meeting kids from all over the nation, and they're coming up to you and you're professionals and things and stuff. And it's like, it's so overwhelming that in those couple days, you see your name elevated to this big honking thing. And it's like, every experience that comes down the line of in that, couple days there, you learn this is someone's chance to meet you, and you better be cool with it because they're going to remember that because it gets referenced later on, right? Mm-hmm. So whether or not one time my girl, who by the way, my sweet little moonbeam Lee McCola, she's just so lovely. And everyone just touch the fucking fluttering.
We
Oh, you know what we got for it?
Touch it.
Applause.
We don't have a flutter button.
We got applause.
Well, it sounds fucking weird, but whatever. But I've been away from the house for 47 hours, and I already miss her. Just because. And by the way, I fire her about once a day. She's the merch mistress for the D.D.C. But she has no. She can cut through the bullshit instantly. Whatever perception has been built up for me in my little design corner of the world, she'll just remind me, they don't even know that you were bitching about having to pay $17 for parking just 20 minutes ago. They don't know. We just carried all the shit in. They don't know that. They think that you get to throw the keys to the concierge. No, man. I'm humping that shit in.
That's a great analogy because when you look at, Draplin, he just drove here, driving cross country and whatnot, and you're in an orange van, nothing fancy, great van, but from what I understand, you've stacked some cheddar biscuits you know, jobs that are probably enough to pay off a house. So we'll say, for the sake of an unconfirmed reference, but like some high paying gigs you've done over the years with your merch and things like that. And so it is really cool to see the opposite side. You know, you have Marky. He pulls up, he throws the keys to the concierge, where you got money in the bank and you're sleeping in the back of a van and keeping, you know, and that actually now kind of the Marky Mark thing makes more sense when I look at how you live your life as we start to see it.
I mean, you know, when we were on the book tour in that van, every night was $140. Well, you get it down to 112. Here's where all this comes from. When we moved out west, we didn't have any of that. We had nothing. You slept in your car. You pitched a tent and you just made it work. There was no option to go and get a shower. You were washing your shit in a rest stop because we just had to get to the west and then start our lab. So at 47 years old, all these years later, it's like, it's not the $100. It's like, I just kind of miss that, you know? Now when it's with Lee, I can't do that. She's got, you know, she wants to use a thing called a bed, you know, and stuff. So
what was the reference with food about not refusing to eat a certain way you had said earlier when we were off air?
What she told me one night we were in, I call it Pizza Ranch territory, which is the Midwest. There's this thing called Pizza Ranch. You ever heard of these? You got to go to the Midwest, fellas. You got to go. There's a place called Pizza Ranch, which is like some sort of all-you-can-eat, just grub fucking stop. And it's like, you know, you go there, maybe like Pietro's, something like that out here, or something like that, where you like all-you-can-eat, whatever it's called. Pizza Ranch. And when you get through Nebraska, they don't have a Whole Foods in these little towns. And in fact, the little IGA supermarket, it's not even open at 1:30 in the morning. So you are either lucky to go through the McDougal's and get some Big Mac or something, which what happens on the road stays on the road, honey. And, you know, pillar of health out here. But one night we were in Nebraska and she just looked at me and said, I'm not eating out of a bag tonight. That's it. You know, during the day or whatever it was, you're like, just so you know, you better plan accordingly. And we'll stop and get a cooler and load up a cooler with some things, and I can make a salad. Or I can, you know, because she eats pretty healthy, right? And you know, I'm down with the lowbrow, you know, grub out in the road, whatever, you know, and it's fine, and it's fun, but it's just not sustainable, right? So to do that tour, to be spending the $200 a night, it was part of the budget. But see, you know, I'm still that kid, and inside that's like, but if you save 5 of those nights, stay with friends. That's $1,000 you can do a lot of things with. For me, or give it to my mom or someone who needs it or something. I didn't need to stay in Idaho in a hotel room. I just kind of jumped in the back. It's been a long time. I left the window open. I've got like 7 or 8 mosquito bites right now. I'm kind of a wuss, you know, these days. But I used to do that coming back and forth from the Midwest to the West. And that's how I got to ride the bird the first time. I went and saw my buddy Roger Cameron.
Oh my God, that's my guy.
You know Roger Cameron?
I know him really. He started Magical Go-Go Wax. Was my first sponsor ever.
Wow, yeah.
When I was a kid, like that was the first brand. Yeah, Rogers is the man.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I met him up at camp.
Yeah.
At, 95.
Yeah.
Artist, fellow teetotaler. Like he didn't drink. I didn't really drink. Every now and again I have a little bit of something, but he's still on the deal. Creative guy. You know,
worked for Lego for a number of years.
That's one of the greatest gigs I've ever done in my life. Is I got to go to Lego and speak to his crew, and it was awesome. And then for my fee, they took me through the Lego company store, and I bought like $2,000 worth of shit. It was awesome, right? You know, fucking, how many times you get to do that in your life? Roger Cameron, man, incredible guy. Well, I stay with him, you know, and it would have been in the van, and I was driving through, and we went to the bird. The one time I've ridden in Utah, and it was. It snowed, but it was kind of a hard pack underneath it. So I was nervous because there was just elevation, and it was like slippery. Now, Bachelor's pretty, it's rolling, but it's not like, you got to hike to get to the some of the
Snowbird's
stuff.
aggressive.
There was some stuff.
Bachelor's pretty flat in that, right?
Yeah. Well, we were, like we went up in that gondola, and it was like, you had to wait in line and all this shit. You wanted to show me all this cool stuff. We went bowling in the city that trip, and I met Chris Engelsman, who was a hero from our town. They're from Michigan, right?
Yeah, he's from Michigan.
Yeah, and we got to meet him, and hung out, and I got to know him a lot more when I was at the magazine, just a couple, 3 years later. But that would have been 97, I think, when I was coming through to stay with Roger here. And I think that trip is where I first went to Bricks.
the bar. It's not open anymore. Yeah, but that used to be the spot.
But what it was an introduction to the politic of what you have to get invited. There's a dress code. Like, I don't even drink. I don't give a shit, But no, it was like you go and it's just white people, Mormon kids, right? Very curious to me, because the way we look at Utahs or the West is they're like they're invented. Where you're from, it's 1650s.
Yeah, the roads are for horse and buggy and shit.
All the way back, right?
Yeah.
Michigan's a couple hundred years after that.
Yeah.
And out here, it's only about 140 years. Mm-hmm. And they're making their own rules and bees and seagulls and the whole bit. Hey, very interesting to me that's in contemporary times, this whole sort of thing. So I got to see all of it. He took me by these like compounds and said, hey, up over that fence, that's some polygamous shit. And I was just like, I'm from Michigan, man. There's pariahs that we were, that happened around, things that happened and people we got pushed out. And then you come out west and it's like, not that that's bad, good, or whatever. It just existed. It was really interesting for me to see, not to mention just go to like some of the greatest thrift stores I've ever been in my life.
In Utah here.
Yeah. So, to come here and, have that sort of experience as a kid, I got to do that in just about every town, with one buddy who lived there, one buddy in Flagstaff, one buddy. I had a lot of friends in Summit County.
He's been a road doctor.
Yeah, you're
for
a
long
road
time.
dog.
Road warrior.
Well, to be in that van and not be, skeeved out by that. George, asking about, what's up with Marky Mark? Well, I know there's not a lot down in that corner of Colorado. You take what you can get on your goddamn satellite, whatever he's got, George Kleckner. But, I've had cops tick, tick, tick on the window. Get out of here.
Really?
One time in Philly. I met the young lady from Philly.
She's talking about Jules.
Sorry, Jules.
Yep.
I met Jules. One of the kids I worked up in Alaska with, making money. Guy named Matt Adalizzi, who passed, skateboarder and stuff, and chef. He was one of my buddies up in one of my first summers up in Alaska. So we get back from Alaska. He's going back to his life in Philly. I'm going back to my life in the West, but I'm going to go do a big road trip through the East. And I stay with him in Philly. And, I could stay in his house, but it meant like some futon or some shit. And it was like, no, I got a mattress in the back of the van. Why wouldn't I do that? Mm-hmm. So I stayed on a little row house street in Philly, and some kids saw me get in my van. So as I get in there and, birthday suit, and
you're dong out there.
Yeah, we like to be comfortable.
Okay, all right.
Well, I'm in there, and then these kids are coming in like rocking the car, and it's like I got my like fucking Rambo knife. Like, what are they gonna come in or break the window? Who knows? They were just fucking with me. But I've had every experience in that van, but that was all before I even turned 25.
I can't believe you sleep in there in your birthday suit.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe that's a little bit of embellishment.
Getting real comfortable in the inner city.
Listen. 2 nights ago, we're talking 20 years ago, this other bullshit, but 2 nights ago, there's a good wide berth on the Gatorade 20 ouncer.
Oh yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to brag, but it's a tight confines. I was pissing in that bottle. I don't have to go hike into the rest stop, I mean, that doesn't happen.
Sketchy stuff out there.
Well, that doesn't happen with Lee next to me. Whatever. I mean, last night I got a hotel because I had to work and then prep myself for my big moment with you guys.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Well, let's keep this thing on the rails. I want to dive back into a couple other things. First thing, I'm just going to get right into it. We got a guest question from a special guest. Here we go.
Hey, what up, Draplin? It's Danny Cass. And I was wondering if you would tell the viewers how much design work you've actually done in your underwear. Because I know some of our greatest grenade logos came out of that basement laboratory of yours.
Yes. Well, this gets into the C word territory, and I'm just going to let it fly. Comfort. Why wear pants? My dad used to have this adage. He'd say, why stand up when you can sit? Why sit when you can lay down? Work your way down to the... Why wear pants when you can take your pants off? So listen, the George Kleckners and Brad Chaffels and Larry Nunez's and Jeff Bakers, and I would take my pants off. My dad was the kind of dad who you got to the house and he was in his boxer shorts and, a Big Dogs t-shirt or some shit was standard fare. And he was comfortable, like right when he got out of work. So why couldn't I be, Danny Cass, huh? Well, there's a name. Well, Dan Cass, you owe me $14 from 2005, Dan. It was really cool to watch those guys, well, blow up, if you will, and then explode internally. The whole thing, many flavors of explosives there. Yeah. I've worked in one cool job, Cinco Design. You have to wear pants, And the metaphor of when I got away from not Cinco, just everywhere, and was in my basement, why can't you just be as comfortable as you want to be? And if that was, a pair of underoos or whatever, the thing is I remember one time the dingo coming over and like just being like, kind of looking at me, because I was in my fucking boxer shorts, and, whatever. And it's like, I'm not going to put on airs. We're just trying to get this damn thing done, because the idea was if you're comfortable, you can get that magazine done in 7 or 8 days. And then you've got 22 other days to work on union, coal, things, stuff, everything else, right? When I worked at the magazine at Snowboarder with Pat and the boys, you had 30 days to get it done, whatever that meant, right? And, it was still really crazy. So there was a lot of grenade made, in the old skivs. But just so you guys know, it's like boxer briefs, or boxers. It's not like tighty whities. I'm sitting there like a, some fucking baby Huey or something, whatever. That's not like that. It's fucking
great baby Huey reference.
Yes.
Love that. One thing I want to hammer on, because I was really fascinated. You started going down this wormhole, and I want to go down that. But when you were talking about union, you were describing the logo and how it, like, you basically kind of went into your kind of mindset about graphic design, and it's got to be small enough to fit on your fingernail and big enough to fit on a jet plane, and you just kind of like, I want to go into I want you to just kind of wind you up and let you go on that topic for a second.
Well, you mentioned Magical Go-Go.
Yes.
Where does Magical Go-Go land? Well, now just check it out. If it has to be pushed into the wax, Roger's going to have to think about that. Mm-hmm. It's not just a sticker. Now, staying in the wax realm, I'm getting every name I know. You go to Willie up at Bluebird. His mark worked well in the wax. You go to One Ball J, and they got a little hippy dippy up there in Washington with the Cummins and stuff. Maybe the sticker would only work, So the thing is like when you're designing, you just can't, everything looks good on a beer can, whoosh, But when it gets pressed into something, you really need to think about that. So, these old sort of, here's a C word, sort of corporate designers, they really had to think through all the different sort of applications. It went into the design of something. Everything's cool, screen printed. But when you go to embroider, look what happens just on your hat there. It just gets a little bit different, right? So there's a charm to that, right? So I remember with Union, and after seeing Gravis, they really designed Gravis to work this tiny little embroidery down the corner of the shoe. Those were beautifully built. They looked a little wonky on your feet, but they were comfortable. So that was a different thing. It's like the design of the comfort was a thing. The design of how the logo worked, pressed into neoprene, pressed into surf, whatever, all these different things. That was really cool to me because Nixon was built that way. It had to be this tiny little thing on the watch. Think of a watch and a watch face and how small that stuff shows there. It gets pressed into things. It has to be readable at that size. So you look at, okay, keep going bigger and bigger and bigger. Nike. That's considered on the shoe, on everything. So here's this opportunity to start Union, right? And it was like really interesting to me that like, I better grill Marty to kind of say, are we going to be allowed to have patterns? And it turns out everything, all the above, maybe not there right away, but it was like, you're prepping yourself. So here's the thing. When you make a logo, everything works best in a circle or a square. When you boil all of us down here, dogs included, we're little cells. And it's like these really simple elements of nature that are just sort of, there's a harmony to these things. So when you come back screaming up, anywhere we look on this microphone here, chances are, that there's going to be a logo there that works somewhere here. And here's how you go look at this stuff to think about it on a little bit larger level. When the iPhone came out, you got to see the shit I was sweating right up close. Why? Because, your life is inside this little app thing right here, right? A square, right? Things work from a foot away, from 6 inches away laying there in that hotel room last night. And I just understood that, like, the greatest logos of all time out there, Bell Telephone, it's in a circle. When you're in the West and you see a train go 2 miles away heading towards Nevada, you can see all the logos on that shit. That's graphic design. And it's about legibility and about working on the side of this big tanker, right? So not only were you doing that to count the stuff, but it was also to say, hey, we're Burlington Northern. We're out there. You know, it's like you better compete, right? So for us to make that sort of decision, you know, that's not me just rolling in there and saying, I get to be the cake decorator of this thing on what I say. No, man. George, do you like orange? Let's position ourselves. We did it. It's one conversation, but we were considerate. Whoever was doing something else, we stayed away from it. So when I start a brand now with a buddy, be it his food cart or something scary, you just make sure that you're not stepping on anyone's toes. You make sure that where is this thing going to work and have to work? And what aren't we thinking about? So years ago, I did this called Healthy Living, kind of like a Whole Foods up in Vermont. And my buddy Evan Rose, Evan Rose, that motherfucker. D.D.C. business manager, Evan Rose, everybody. That motherfucker. Yeah. We talk a lot. He's just one of the greatest people I've ever met in my life, Evan Rose. But, he got me hooked up with these guys in Burlington, and it's a supermarket. And it's upscale. And what you learn really quick, it's not the sign you're designing. Really what you're designing is what goes on under here, what goes on inside the thing that you see. There's a little logo, something stamped into the top of this coffee cup. It better work there too. What we were designing for the supermarket wasn't necessarily the sign. It was the little thing that went on the potato salad. Every day, that impression, 3,000 or 4,000 a day or whatever the number they gave me, a couple thousand a day. Think about when you go to the deli and you watch people grab stuff, grab and go, right? That logo better work on there. Incredible. It better work on that receipt. Mm-hmm. That's being spit out every time. Then you get up to the bag and the little cool bags, and then you get to somewhere you get to the sign. So that kind of, how did I learn about that shit? It's because I read these books about how they were like starting with the basic of the DNA of a brand. Now in snowboarding, or you can kind of just do whatever you want. It's like there just were limitations. Same with coal. We had to make sure, number one, that you could get it tiny and tiny and tiny down into these little, because Brad wasn't about, like, what was the one that came years later? N.T.V.P. Mm-hmm. And it was like big and loud and Snoop Dogs and crazy people and just wild shit and, whatever, punkers and partiers and okay, fluorescent shit. Well, just look at Brad. He's not that. And the product felt that way. And that was okay to do that. Now they're pretty wild, 20 years later, whatever. So you have to really work within those tiny little confines, and then you just work your way out of that. By the time it gets, like, I remember you're talking about Union, when I actually saw a shipping container filled with boxes, rubber meets the road, because I built that box for Martino, and we had, 5 went in. I think it was 5. So if you think about that, 5 sets of bindings goes into a box, and then a box goes into a shipping container. Those things come from somewhere far away, And it's like, we understood that when you open that thing up, you see this big Union logo, and then there's little things for like what colors and things. We got to design all that shit. So it's like every element can be designed. It's like a restaurant. When you go into a restaurant, the sign's made, and then the menu's made, and then when they need a T-shirt, by the way, 5 years later, there's 17 different pieces. And, like as a design nerd, what a privilege it was to be able to kind of start and say, let's just look a couple steps ahead. So, yeah, that's the thinking there. And that's no different if it's my buddy's food cart or some of the bigger stuff I've worked on. It's the same questions. And what's funny is even when I'm working in the big leagues, you get this, wow, like, we didn't even think that way. Because you know why? Fucking graphic designers and artists are just so indulgent. Here's what I'm thinking for this. What I liked about C3, Union and Cole, it was a we word. Not I'm doing this, I'm doing that. We always were making, that's the only way I know how to talk about it. Because I really felt that I was being guided by an animal like Johan. Sure. But I was being guided by him because he knew how to sell. And then I had to help guide those guys to help make it easier to sell. So you work together. It's just, these are small little things, but the bigger things get, it's harder to make those quick decisions. So every year, those guys would come down for union, and we'd have a battle. Here's the colorway we want. We like this color. You know, maybe it's inspired by a Nike or inspired by something we saw or inspired by, you know, something. We'd battle it out. It was hard to do, but it's because Johan knew the forecast, you know, and we had to trust that. So that quality of like just being open to like, this isn't just for my portfolio. Who gives a fuck? This is make it easier so you can read the shit when it gets off the damn, you know, off the truck or whatever, off the boat.
Crazy you thought the way you did. That's so cool.
Dude, going back to like graphic design stuff, when I think about when I'm in the grocery store, just because you were talking about grocery stores, it sparked this, but you'll be looking at like a wall of chips, for example. And it's like, you don't buy based on the chip that's inside it. You buy based on the design, like the design work on the box or the bag.
Yeah, sure.
And it's so funny because like nowadays, especially I see like, you know, with you know, I try to eat healthy when I can. And you see the like healthy kind of like hip branding, right? That like
less is more.
Less is more. And you're like, you know, as opposed to like maybe something that was designed in the 90s or 2000s, it's kind of got a different style.
Right.
And so I look at the new kind of simple, less is more, and I'm like, I'm going to buy this bag on chips based on the design work. And but it's so funny how it's
Now that's really interesting because now just for one little second.
Yep.
I'm going to take you on a ride of the mind.
Let's do
All
it.
right. Are you ready there?
Yeah.
Stone?
We are ready.
So what if it was a white bag and it had an orange triangle? You know, I love Doritos, man. I get a Dorito with a Subway or some shit every now and again. We don't have any of that shit around the house because I eat the whole fucking bag of those things and eat the bag too. Just gone.
A little Cool Ranch.
But if just imagine a white bag
Copy.
with an orange triangle, it just says Doritos and a little bit of Helvetica in the corner. Not only could you triple the price,
Yes.
but you'd also scare away a lot of people. So you know why Doritos looks like it looks like Doritos with Waka Waka and fucking like racing graphics and shit? Because it's got to get to your uncle. You know, it's got to get to your cousin who doesn't give a fuck about whatever. You know what I mean? How the hell can Liquid Death put water in a can and ship them all to me in Portland, Oregon? I'm still trying to wrap my head around. By the way, this stuff is all the there's nothing in it, and it tastes so good. Right out of the Utah River.
It tastes better out of a can.
It really does.
It does.
You know, the Applestorification.
Yes. That's a great, yeah.
When you see, like next time you're at Target, just go into like the makeup aisle as a nerd and think about this graphic design stuff there, because it's like you'll see just words like, you know, I don't know, replenish. It's not even the brand. It's the idea that you're starting over and your skin's going to get clean or something. You know, listen, there's a lot of psychology that goes in that stuff too. You know, I don't know if that was necessarily, you know, applied to the world, you know, of snowboard and stuff, because whatever, you know, but you know, I think about it because I'm easily led, and you get tricked. I know I'd go right to that Dorito thing because I'm lucky to be able to afford Apple.
Yeah.
And now I get to go in, and there were years I couldn't afford it. Now, we haven't talked about going to Alaska. I went to Alaska for 4 summers, 96, 97, 98, 99. I always list them because it was 4 summers of my fucking life to make money for college, to pay for my first computer, to pay down college, to pay, you know, whatever, to live out west. And I'm really proud of that. I didn't like it up there. It was beautiful up there, but, you know, I have to mention that shit because it's a big part of my building block. You know, it elevated me to where I could at least get to the point where I could go and buy one of the apples or whatever I bought. You know, I mean, I couldn't before that. I just couldn't. I couldn't go to my parents. Maybe I could have, but I didn't need to. They trained us that, you know, I got myself out west. We paid our rent, you know. I remember a cousin of mine being confused and being like, wait, but how does your mom get money to you out there? And it was like, you know, like Western Union or something, like bank account or like a wire. And I was like, I have a pizza job. What are you talking about? Different strokes for different folks, whatever. Like your mom, dad give you money, or your mom gives you money. What do you, like, what world are you in? My parents couldn't do that. But cooler than that, they didn't have to. We, you know, you buy what you can afford and make good decisions and you'll be all right, you know. But I remember being real close to the old, that's why I say about being broke. It's never again, you know. It pushes me all these years later. But to elevate myself to be able to have that appreciation, I'm also pretty cynical about it, you know, because I know that the reference of the triangle and the thing, it's like, it's still a Dorito inside that package, you know, and you kind of have to understand that, you know, it's like graphic design, and we don't even notice this, but check it out. The first stop sign you see out of here, that's graphic design. It's recognition, it's patterns, it's things, and it keeps order to an otherwise, you know, could be chaotic, even in this little, you know, park you guys are in here, this little, you know, office park thing. So it's like there's graphic design everywhere you look, but it can also be used as a weapon. Trump 2024 flags, man, fuck these guys. But it's effective, you know, and it's cheap bullshit made far away. And no one ever talks about any of that for these, you know, these big nationalist assholes. But, you know, to see graphic design used that way in the last bunch of years, it's fucking terrifying to me. To go all the way back to World War II, they used graphic design to try to take over the world, right? So think about that, flags and stuff and things and logos and how terrifying. And also appropriation, they took that from native cultures, you know, indigenous cultures, they took that stuff. So it can be real scary. Now, that's a real high level of this stuff, but the idea is like, you know, when we were making Union and Coal and the things I've been so lucky to work on, you get to be pretty honest, you know? Now, if it is about fluffing it up a little bit, like I remember I used to have a hard time when we would put these like scantily clad ladies in snowboard. There's nothing wrong with it, I guess, whatever, but maybe not now, 15 years later. I don't know if that would be the same thing.
Yeah,
it's a no, I know, but we debated it then. And that's why we did like a women's issue. Like, fuck it. I'm not writing this stuff. They can go shoot it. They can write it. They can go rip it up. And they did. And we made a platform for that. It was awesome. I was so proud of that, you know? By the way, it was cool. It was not necessarily the right thing to do. It was just cool to facilitate some of that shit. Well, we did that with our little snowboard magazine too. But I'd have a hard time with that stuff because I was like, we don't need to do that. You know, I know it sells and stuff, but that's just not, it's not me, certainly. We can package our shit in other ways, you know? And show our stuff in other ways. But, you know, certain guys, certain things, we had certain characters. You know, J2 was on the staff, you know, old buddy there, you know, and, yeah. You know, I think I was, who was I just telling this story about one time when Twos, he came to into the basement, you know,
when you live with Mikey?
No, I was, when I crashed there, the Mikey LeBlanc hostel, I owe you about $47,000, Mike. Thank you for all this time. No, when I was in my basement in Portland and Twos came for the weekend to work on the mag or whatever, you know, fucker would drive. It's 750 miles. And that should take you about, I don't know, what is it, 14, 15 hours? I remember him claiming something like, I did it in like 9 hours. I said, no, you didn't. You know, you were driving. He did it. You know, whatever it was, like
radar detector.
Yes, turn the lights off and shit. You know, him and whatever. And one time he comes into the house and, you know, we do all the, you know, like, I know I'm pleasantly plump. It's a part of my existence, part of my being. But he always loved to always mention it. And I always have to say something. Everyone else has nice decorum. But J2 would always just go, what's up, Thunder Thighs? You know, fuck you, Twos, you know, whatever. And we get all past
He was
that.
honest to a fault, wasn't he, Twos?
Fucking, you know. Well, we get all past that. And then I remember he looked under my machine. He goes, your cords, you know, cord management or something. So he crawls under this like tight space of like, you know, there's like the IKEA. I have my IKEA desk at the time, and I have a little mini IKEA table. And that thing's about 18 inches. It's pretty tight under there. So he crawls into there, and his feet are sticking out, and he's going to, you know, get the cord management right. And he fell asleep. And he slept the night there.
Oh, my God.
And I have a photo of him and his ass, you know,
just laying
out,
under your desk.
no shirt on.
Yep.
Went in, no shirt. Pants on, and then these big, you know, D.C.s or what, a big frumpy, you know. And he just slept there, you know, because he just passed out, and he got up, and the cords. So I still have all the little tags because he went through and, you know, said this goes to your printer, and
you organized it all.
Well,
for
yeah.
you.
When I, you know,
management.
when I upgraded to whatever I was upgrading, you know, I kept his little tag somewhere.
That's cool.
That's a little Twos story.
Today we're going to be talking to you about Bubs Naturals. Huh, Chris?
Let me tell you about their little apple cider vinegar gummies. I've been chomping these things down. They are great for your gut biome, your gut health. I know that they helped out Angie, your wife, right?
Yeah, they helped her out a ton. She takes them every day. They fix some stomach issues she has. Loves the taste as well. They're delicious.
Yeah, it's not like you're choking down some gross. It's like eating candy, basically.
It's like eating
candy. But it's good for your stomach. They also have their kind of token product, which is right in front of me here. This is the collagen protein. We like to mix up some shakes after working out, and it just keeps you, as you get older, bored and longer. You know, we start to deteriorate. This old chassis ain't running like it used to. You need things like collagen to keep it going, huh, Buds?
Yeah, I'm as old as it gets out there trying to snowboard and keep up with these young kids. Collagen is the glue that keeps your body together. So if you're taking it, it's just going to help you feel better, recover quicker. Great product. And it's a great crew, right? They're backed by snowboarders.
Absolutely, owned by snowboarders. And if you were born in the 1400s like Eastone, you need collagen to maintain.
I think my body would probably just explode.
It would explode
if I didn't have collagen in the system.
Exactly. So yeah, great. The company's got a great story, owned by snowboarders. You know, Bubs was a Navy SEAL who, you know, lost his life saving others, and this brand Bubs is made to honor him. So you're supporting a great cause. 10% of all proceeds go to charity, which is great. You feel good. You're contributing to a good thing if you support these guys. And you can head on over to bubsnaturals.com if you want to support this incredible brand, huh, Buds?
Yeah, you can get 20% off with the code BOMBHOLE.
Again, head on over to bubsnaturals.com, use promo code BOMBHOLE, and get some collagen in your system. We're a little past due on a little thing we call the Liquid Death Spinning Wheel of Death. Here we go.
To the Liquid Death.
Death, death, death. Spinning wheel of death.
Like I want to be the first guest on your podcast to get caught in the wheel of death and like bail.
Oh yeah.
Remember you ever see the footage of on the old is that the right spot? Did you get
That's good. We got to Wheel of Fortune. We got to talk about Liquid Death for a hot second here. So basically Liquid Death kicks ass. Draplin's chugging some as we speak, and so is Eastone. How is that? How is that thing, Bud?
It's delicious.
Yeah?
Yeah. They put it in the can from the Alps, and it somehow tastes so much better in a can.
It does. Nothing like some ice cold water in a can. You're not contributing to all the plastic waste that's going on. Pat Moore is our liaison over there, so they're good people doing that support the show. If you're interested in picking up some Liquid Death, head on over to liquiddeath.com/bombhole. You get a couple koozies. Again, that is liquiddeath.com/bombhole. You'll get a couple koozies and support us and support Liquid D. Now, Draplin, what we do have here is the Liquid Death Spinning Wheel of Death. You give it a spin, and whatever it lands on, you have to do, basically.
Yeah, I can't see it.
You can't see it. Well, the camera's got to be able to see it. So we'll tell you what it is.
I understand.
We'll tell you what you land on.
You know, if you've got hot pipes, you know, this stuff does the trick. So, all right. Okay, you ready?
You just got to hold the bottom, I think, when you spin it.
Let me get all in.
Chris, you want to hold the...
Oh, yeah. I'll give you a... Yeah.
Okay, you ready?
Yep. All right. Are you ready? Design a bomb hole logo in under 2 minutes for free.
All right, here you go. Okay, we got design a bomb hole logo.
All right, that's it.
Under 2 minutes.
You got something hard?
And again, the last part is for free. Also, that's on there. So I hope our verbal contract is we're in agreement with that.
This pen's nice. It's a .000002 Sharpie. You know, for writing the Lord's Prayer on the head of a pin. You know, I mean, this is real nice. You know, for a bomb hole logo in 2 minutes. You know, I mean, shit. Don't listen. You're pissing up the wrong rope, fucking around with this kind of stuff. You don't want to go to war with the D.D.C. because I will fuck you guys up.
We're gonna get a $50,000 invoice. In,
here's what I would say. If we have a couple minutes, why did you? What does the bomb hole mean? Because what I think of this is what I think about. I was known to do a little excavating in my day. You know, I'd hit a jump, and I remember being told one time, like, just let him get the footage first.
Before you do a bomb hole.
Thing up. I'd slide out, you know, and fuck it all up. Yeah. Is that kind of what?
That's what the bomb hole is.
So,
and it has a double meaning, too, because it's also like, you know, hard times in someone's life. We've gone there.
We talk about life bomb holes.
Yeah, life bomb holes.
And then also going back to when you're thinking of a name for a podcast, we had all these different names, right? We had boots on the ground, street. I actually have a list on my phone. We should talk about. It's like 50.
Yeah.
Buds and I are going back and forth. We're trying to figure out the name, and ultimately we wanted something that we could build into a brand that we could put a logo on, and put on a T-shirt, and that's it. So
Fucking break this pen. Watch it.
And also, we had to have something that wasn't already taken from like their www. Everything's been registered.
It's also it's also a great job. You can call it the B-hole if you want to.
Fun.
Fun.
It's fun for the whole family. Really.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I remember, one of my greatest snowboard memories with Josh Dirksen. There was a jump way over in Rainbow Chair. Can't remember the name of the jump. It's either a mushroom or something, but it was like this big roller. You go like this. There's a little bit of a zip zap to a little tranny to land in, right? A little transition. And you had to kind of hit it, but it's like pretty flat. And I just hit like just above the transition and just kind of skidded out and just kind of slid into the powder. And, there's Dirksen at the top of the hit going, "You all right, Draplin?" Because I just was getting out, like, oh, shit. Like, I hit this thing and kind of cased and then slid out. I was all right. Into the edge of the trees, Clean all the fucking goggles up and all the shit, get the snow out of everything, unstrap and get out of the way. And I just watch him drop into the little thing, flip to fakie. I don't even know if I'm even talking about this right. So he drops in, flips, goes to fakie, and does the smoothest full cab and lands perfectly on the transition and just rides up to me and looks at me and goes, "You all right, man? That looked like you might have come." And I was like, that guy was so nice and so smooth.
You all right, Eric? You all right? He's got that like cowboy voice.
Well, like just a genuinely nice person, but probably one of the most, definitely the most talented up on that hill. When we moved to Bend, Dirksen and a kid named Jason McAllister would come over from, I think, Eugene, where they're from, and spend the night on our floors. And like, listen, I had party roommates and I had all kinds of roommates and whatever. I was always working late at some pizza job. But I remember those guys going to bed at like 9:30, 10 o'clock because they were getting up at 5, stretching, and getting up to the mountain when it opened. So that was in him from the very, very, get-go, But I fucked that landing up pretty good that day. That's for sure.
Yeah, the bomb hole. That's
but you know what? There should be leeway there because I wasn't trying to become one of these things.
True.
I wasn't. That wasn't.
You were just enjoying the culture.
Well, when I got to know, like, I remember Stan Evans telling me. By the way, Stan Evans. Is he still around here?
He's like in New York shooting photos.
Yeah. But I always liked him, and we always would go pretty deep on things and. Cool guy, and him telling me a story about the Wasatch sort of like fights out here and shit, and he'd build a booter.
Oh, the drama.
Yeah, and then I know it's probably all lore for you guys, but I never experienced any of that shit. Like one of my partners from my old job, I had this studio for 10 years before I got into the backyard. When he goes and surfs on the coast, you run into that kind of tribalism out there. This is the Oregon coast, like a couple weeks ago. He'll run into these little things. And, then getting to know Andy and Andy Wright telling me about, it's real weird here. And then like certain rails, because I know Salt Lake was all about the rails. Certain rails were like kind of owned and things. Just very exhausting, But like Stan was
exhausting.
Well, Stan was telling me how he got like some fights and shit. And I just was like, but why? I get it because you're trying to sell it to the next thing. But that's just not the world I came from.
Yeah.
When we were at Bachelor, when you'd see Eggy rip by, he was just there riding. I didn't get to go on the trips with those guys. They went on. That's the whole other world of paid, expense reports and shit. That's just not the world I have. So there is a part of me that's very thankful that it was only like, wow, we just get to go. I don't even know.
There it is. We got a logo. We got a logo.
But who made this logo? Who made
Dave Doman.
Oh, Dave Doman. Let me get a word in here about Dave Doman. One of my very, very favorite Salt Lakeans right there, Dave Doman. Oh, man. How fast could we get him down here?
Hey, I got something for you. So Dave, just living with Dave for a long time, he always, he was one of the first people I ever saw with field notes. He always looked up to you. He'd always talk about Draplin and all this. So I called Dave before this, and we got a guest question from Dave. So here we go.
Hi guys, this is Dave Delman, here to ask Draplin a question about his process in artwork. I'm curious, when you get a job or start work on something, do you start on the computer or do you start with pen and paper, pencil and paper, or something else? And please explain your process a little bit. And is it different every time or is it always the same? And one last part of the question, how did you get so dope?
His original question was, can I just ask him, how did he get so dope?
Well, that's easy to answer. Some things are just given to you by the grace of the universe. I'll do the second part. No, I don't know. I love that guy. I loved his creativity and his weirdness and his just smile. And I know when he got hurt, it was weird because a little bit of Dave Doman got mixed up and some wires crossed. So to see him last couple of years, he'd come to some talks and stuff. To see those guys show up with Liz and Tonino, who I've always been a fan of Tonino all these years back. Big fan of Liz. I mean, very, very nice people. And, see that he's doing better. There should be a whole podcast with just Dave Doman, and just because that's a scary thing that happens to people. Because I didn't want to lose what I loved about him, which was just this sort of irreverence, this like complete lack of like trying to climb a ladder and shit, right? That's what I loved about him. So to answer your question there, Dr. Doman, we can just keep going too. We'll just, we'll make
we
a
got
little
Logies
bomb.
coming all over the place.
So I always start on paper, and it really isn't here in the field notes. So, you see me here sketching little leaves and little goodies and stuff, but it starts here because my hand is just that much more free here. And these are all bits that I do. I get asked this question a lot, right? But it really is free here. Like I can just get things down quicker. And then basically you're gunning for architecture. This is just a blueprint for later on, right? That's the way I look at it. Now listen, I can climb in to the kids. Who's the kid in the back?
Drake, our
Drake's.
graphic designer.
So I met Drake this morning. Sorry. So I can jump into Drake's machine and just like start with like a white page and just fresh, nothing on it, and go. But it's easier if you've got somewhere to start. So I can get just a lot more going there. And to answer that, it's like there's a safety to this, And I've just been sketching all my life. Lee just took me up to Mount Hood. And she wanted to go to this one place, this winery, to sit and look at the mountain. It was beautiful. And like, I've lived there for 18 years in the city, and it's like 20 years now. And it's like Hood is 45 minutes away and I forget, it's so beautiful up there and it's such a lucky place to be. Well, to sketch that or to sketch, to just take notes of how to get here, from your thing. It's like, it's one thing buried in my phone, but this thing is always right here. And when I start something, I like to listen. So if you hire me to make a logo, I'm going to listen to your input. I'm going to listen to Stone's, whatever. And we're just going to do these things where it's like, all right, what do I need to watch out for? What are you guys afraid of? What are you guys celebrating? That starts on paper. And then to go and take a look at who you compete against, right? So if I had to look at the bomb hole and make you a logo, we have to look at all the snowboarding-based sorts of things. Okay, let's not just limit ourselves to that. What's the next step past that? And you might list a bunch of things that you're into. Well, we just make sure that you have something to aspire to. Because here's the deal. If this thing did take off, like it is, and gets even crazier than just kind of snowboarding and all the sort of like secondary and tertiary sort of connections that you guys have, this spider web of all your friends and stuff. Well, what does it look like when it competes with other things? So it needs to really think about that, So it's like, that's where I start that process of just like listening and then making notes and having something to reference because I just forget the conversations, right? So I'll go back and be like, here's the date when I talked to this person. Oh, okay, now it comes back. And she was concerned about this and he was concerned about that. And then I, start there, And then, of course, when I look at what's been going on around something, you just get on the paper and start going. And sometimes I'll nail it. And if I nail it, it's just a photo with my iPhone airdropped into my machine, get a snip of it in Illustrator and start building it. And before you know it, it's mindless. You're just doing production at that point versus feeling around in the dark, and like, I don't know, we're like trying to hit some target. This gets me there quicker, right? So, It's just been a crutch. My dad was a chronic doodler, so he'd be, as a salesman, he'd be on the phone, you know, sealing a deal and bullshitting and stuff, and he always had paper and pens and just sketching and doodling, right? So it's in me, and I do the same stuff, you know, and to watch I have a nephew out in Portland, my little sister Leah is there, and Jacob, and that's my almost brother-in-law, and then, you know, little Oliver. To watch him draw and learn has been one of the greatest things in my life, you know, to see him, you know, stop and go sketch. So he wanted to make his own kids YouTube logo. And he got his little field notes out of his backpack and he started to sketch and he brought it to me. He goes, here's what I'm thinking. Like, I put that into him. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It was really cool. You know, and this is a quick little moment, you know, instead of just like snapping his fingers at me and saying, make it. Because he's watched me in his 11 years, you know, bring shit to life, you know, on my machine, you know, and it's real fun because when he'll wear one of my little space shuttle graphics to school or something, you know, the teacher was like, where did you get that? I'm a big fan of Aaron Draplin. You know, he made that. She goes to this whole thing. He goes, that's my uncle. You know, so he says to me, he goes, you know, you're famous. I said, don't you ever forget it, you little rat. You know, whatever. You know, but, I mean, I just go, no. Oliver, I make a graphic. I print a bunch of shit up. I give them to friends. We sell some all over the world. And then, you know, you wear it. And she sees it. Her kid bought one. You know, that's how that shit works. But just, you know, so you know, because, you know, he's being raised in this TikTok world where they're wrapping their head around, you know, that suddenly an 11-year-old can monetize things, you know, and shit. I mean, which is kind of real, right? So I just kind of try to, you know, tell him like, hey, man, you can sketch and make anything you want. So if you want to build out this kick-ass set, start there, you know. This goes here, this goes there. I mean, as I look around here, I keep going back to that shitty video camera up there out of a skateboard deck. That's the best thing you have in here. I don't know who made that.
I made that. Yeah.
Fucking rules. Okay, well, you know, it's like I just keep going back to that thing, you know, and it's like, you know, that Dunkin' Donuts over there. If that thing goes missing today, sorry.
Sorry. I saw in one of your talks, you were designing a logo, and you talked about, like, if you're designing a good logo, this is what your artboard looks like. And at first it was like one logo, and then you backed out, and there was like 100 versions.
Yeah.
And that was pretty interesting to me.
You know, what you can't do on paper, you can do a lot of revisions and little goodies. That's, you know, I'm trying to think if I have something here that shows, you know, like we're really banging out a bunch of stuff. But if it isn't just sketching, it's making a list of stuff that I got accomplished in a day. That's a big thing to me to start my day and say, August 13th, I went through 9 or 10 things, right? And it's like, that just keeps me kind of grounded that, like, you know, I'm a zero inbox guy, right? So zero inbox means if there's nothing in the inbox, and the last time I got down to the teens is when I had my appendix out in 2011, because people thought I was going to fucking die. You know, they just backed off from having to send these emails that say, did you get my email? Yeah, I got your fucking email. I got every email since 1997. Well, people backed off and I got down to the teens. Now about 2 months ago, I've been riding high. I got down to 35 emails that just need to be dealt with, right? So there's like this barometer. It's usually around 100. All summer long is 50 and 55. So it's a chart. Now, that's in my email. Now there's limitations there. On paper, I can go crazy. But when you get into the machine, you can go infinite, right? And that is a privilege. It's not something that we really champion enough, that how lucky we are to do that. Yeah. Paper has an you don't
have Apple Z on the
has a limit, right? Has a limit, and the idea that, like, when you get inside there's an edge. There can be no edge. So to work quick, I size that up quick. Push it over, dupe it, make a little tweak. Put a little arrow, so you just know your direction. Make another one, trick it out. 17 of those, 10 seconds each time? Who knows? A couple minutes each time, maybe whatever. Half hour later, you've refined that thing down, but you have your lineage. And you can go back to where you started and start over in a different direction. So I have these like tree branches inside documents. You save that document, all that bullshit's there. You grab the 10 things you dig, you start another document, and you keep on going. And by the time you do that, it's like a game. You have gone pretty far. What we tend to do is we tend to be very precious inside that stuff and say, this thing lands on this artboard, and I'm going to tweak it. And save over it. So the first time that a client of mine said, man, I liked last week, and I had to go back and like remember what I made. I didn't quite get it right. I learned the lesson there.
Lineage.
Yeah. I mean, we're afforded that. It's not, it's, you know, that's why I love this stuff so much. Like, that's just not the way it is when you're selling insurance, you know, or whatever that people make lots of money on, or I don't even know what people make lots of money on. I'm, you know, at a WMAX thing, I just filmed my 9th talk, and it's this big deal. And tonight I have to get a hotel because I just have all the social media requirements I have to do. Like, I sign these contracts, and you know, they want me to take videos of me saying, come see it, you know. It's all work. It's all little assets. But I will never complain about any of that, because whether or not I made lots of money, and I did all right, I saved it, or I didn't make shit and I was just able to get away with it, both are okay. But I got to do it on kick-ass stuff. A beautiful computer, a clean desk, big, what is it, BBWs? BBMs, big, beautiful monitors. I like them. A little extra real estate, if you know what I'm saying. So, you know, remember those Apple 30s came out? $2,500 a piece? I drained an account to buy 2 of those. Because I just understood the quality, the efficiency of, like, not having to move a window. You click too many things. You know, it's hard for me to work when I'm on the road because it's on this little thing on my laptop. I still can do it because I learned how to use the little spaces, you know, where you go, put your iTunes and your shit on this space, number 6, and just arrow through. Keep the first one just to work, right? Your tools. Okay. It's just, you know, I'll never complain because I just spent my career on beautiful products, beautiful stuff, beautiful things. And I need to be aware of that because artists tend to get a little poopy about, oh, it's so hard to be compromised and the money isn't right. I mean, motherfucker, you were inside the whole time. What if you were outside? You ever worked outside? It sucks when you work outside. I've worked outside, turns out. I wash dishes all summer up in Alaska. I have lifted molds, you know, big molds inside a factory all summer long for manpower checks. The old guy was 64 and a half years old, and they brought us in as just basically muscle. He'd look at a 800-pound mold and go, that goes to C7 or whatever the fuck, you know, and it was like, we shimmy it, get it on the thing, lift it up, take it over to C7, put it on the thing, and he'd go, okay, now I need C8 over to this station over here. You know, we're moving these molds around to go, you know, in this factory. He couldn't do it anymore. It sucked. But I know what it's like to get hurt. I know what it's like to have a punch thrown at me. Graphic designers and artists don't know what that's like, you know, and I'll never go back to that shit. I know what it's like to, like, not be able to sleep up in Alaska because the sun is still out. Motherfuckers are partying. Motherfuckers are fighting, fucking, and sucking, having the greatest summer of their lives, and they're going to bed at 4 a.m. and getting up at 5:30. I couldn't do that. I'd be sick. I wasn't a big drinker anyway, but I'd psych myself out because, you know, whatever, you know, it's light out, and I have to get up at 4:45 and riding my bike down to the rail yard. It's cold. You know, this is fucking July and shit. And, you know, and you don't feel good. And then I'm chasing a buck. So when people say things to me like, you know, how do you explain your drive? I'm never pedaling my bike down to that rail yard again. I know it's real to like boil it down like that. But I remember crying on the way there because it was just sucked. I didn't want to be around these fucking happy hikers. Not all day, the rest of the summer. You know. I remember this woman, you know, I'm on this train. I'm a design student. I'm not a chef. But chefs, because of the predicament they're in, I call it a predicament. Now, I might offend all the chefs watching. But no, you didn't elevate yourself and get to the next damn thing. You defaulted, some of those guys at least. Now, we'd have these culinary students come in. They were different. They could work with people because they were learning the craft. It's not about just how you design. It's how you communicate. It's not how you cook. It's how you communicate. These fucking, you know, troglodytes or whatever, these just mean dicks who were these like, kind of lifer chef dudes, they'd make shit hard on people. And you could tell the A and B, that kid, she's going somewhere because she's cooking for her life. Watch, she's going to own a restaurant someday. This dude got in some trouble, and he's owning those sorts of cooks. Nothing wrong with either, I suppose. But why was B always mean? So I remember this one girl. There were 2 kinds of servers. There was the server that was there to party all summer, would adhere to my stupid little request, which is like, just put the plates here. Because I have my shit down to a science. I have 11 moves to make. Why make it 14? Just deal with my 11 moves. You won't hear a peep out of me. And I remember she would come in, this one girl, would take her plate, and she would do this every time. It'd go tink. And everyone, it's on a train. You're bouncing around. Everyone else take the plate and go like this. Because every now and then, the plate would go wah, 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 and splash into my shit. Okay, whatever. I asked her one time, just set the plates in where they're supposed to go. And it was just a big fuck you to me. And it tells you everything you need to know about that person the rest of her life. Like, she's probably dead now. I don't care. That's fine. So it's, like in that moment, you could tell the kind of creativity in someone. I'm stuck in this dish pit. I'm going to make it as efficient and as smart as, whatever. My second summer up there, the rail guy, John, who was like, our foreman or something, who watched over the train operations. He said, hey, I want you to do a seminar with all the new dishwashers. Because, anywhere I put you, you'd understand how to size it up. You learn that by restrictions. You learn that by having to capitulate to someone pushing you around. So, when I think back on that train or just some of those sort of things, it's like I think back to these guys who bent rules for me to make it better. I didn't want to be up there. You're in the most beautiful place in the world. But I wasn't there to fight, fuck, suck, kayak, shoot guns, and all the other cool stuff. I was there to make money. And he saw it in me because we had these 8-day cycles. And I would you do a day up on the train, day down. So that's 2 days. Day 3, you're in Anchorage for the day. 4 and 5 on the train again. Then 6, 7, 8, 3 days off. So the idea is 8 days, 4 days on, 4 days off, some which way. On my 3 days, I would take another run for someone who was sick, trade a run. I'd get 6 of 8. He saw this in me. So policy was no headphones while you're washing dishes. So, it's a safety concern or whatever. And this guy would bend the rules for me. And if I could, I would love to track him down and give him a bonus. Like, I've done okay. And to say, hey, here's something, whatever. Because you knew what policy was. Another guy would walk around with a clipboard, this fucking worm. I shouldn't mention his name, but it was Jeff. And, and he would just... Oh, you need to put the Walkman away, over. And I just look at him and be like, man, it's a fucking dish pit. What do you care? I'm getting my job done. And the other guy would just say to me, hey, man, if that gets your job done quicker, that's creativity. I mean, whatever the company policy was, he understood. And that guy was the greatest to work for. I still to this day love that guy. I just remember that tiny little thing. So, the way that I apply that to like when a kid needs a hand, or when I'm in front of these Adobe people to talk about their software, I'm not going to go to the policy thing, which is like, shit on it and look tough. I'm going to try to think about how it's really gave me an incredible life. It's those little moments that taught me to like look at the other side. Someone bent a rule or someone figured out the rules so well that it made room for other stuff. This is just washing dishes. Turns out I did that with snowboarding magazines. I did that with working on my own. I did that with taking care of people around me. I did that with how I bought my Volvo when I bought my Volvo, So, there's just ways to kind of fuck with things in creative ways, All
right, buds, I got a good feeling this winter is going to be a great winter. We're due. What are you going to need if it's going to be a good winter and it snows a lot?
You're going to need an Ikon pass to really own the Stoke this season, Chris.
Absolutely. If you want to be the owner of the Stoke, you don't want to lease it, you want to own it, you're going to need an Ikon pass. So what you're going to want to do is head on over to iconpass.com. And they're offering some great deals right now. How much are they offering the season pass for, buds?
$429 USD for the adult pass.
That's a great deal. You get to ride it over 45 destinations worldwide. You get to own the Stoke. And where do you pick up this pass, buds?
You're going to go to iconpass.com.
Just make sure you go ahead and pick up your pass before October 15th. That's when prices go up. So again, iconpass.com before October 15th, and you're going to own what, buds?
The Stoke. You know what? I tried to rent a Stoke last year. Did not work out for me.
Doesn't work. You will be an owner of the Stoke.
Stake your claim for the 2021-22 season now.
So as we're listening to all that stuff, it's super fascinating, by the way, so thank you for sharing it. But I want to know, how much importance do you put on relationships?
You mean professionally as far as like when I start a project or something?
I think as I was listening to you talk, I'll elaborate a little bit more. You're talking about, getting to know your superior in your job, and he's letting you wear headphones. And when I hear that, what I almost hear is you're kind of putting effort into your relationships with that person. You know, when I hear you talk about the stuff with Union, you know, when I hear so much of it is kind of how you deal with people and how you're just a good person to other people, you know?
Well, cool. Yeah. Well, you know, I think the thing to think about is there's just indulgences out there. Sometimes artists and creatives and graphic designers, they indulge in sort of this difficulty. Like if Ethan says, go up, I say, no, I'm going to go down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm the one who's making the call. You do your editing. You do your film and you do your shit. I'm not up there, you know. And fuck all that. You know what I mean? They're lacking vision. If I make his job as easy as I can make it for when he has to deal with me, we're smooth sailing. Might take a little more work on my part, but what is it a part of me? Because you know what? I used to pump chairlifts up and down the hill. And we knew how to make the tow shack fun. You know, there were old timers in there that were just mean. So you get to see A and B. A was absolutely going to be like, hey, we're going to have fun with this. I'm going to have tunes up there. I had mixtapes that would like do my shifts. You know, by the way, if you did a double pump on the button on the rope tow shack, everyone would fall off the rope. You know, you do little kids all fall. Every now and again just to spice shit up. But we made it creative. We took care of each other. So you can do that with your life. Now, how I do that with graphic design, I hope, is just not belly aching. Now, listen, I cry like anybody else. Motherfucker made a change. Motherfucker, how they picked that shitty part or whatever, you know. But I would hope George, people have called in, Danny, whatever, that I was easy to work with, albeit maybe prickly a couple times. You know, with the grenade guys, you know, you quickly realize is they're just winging it like anybody else. So I can talk to them in a certain kind of way. But if we needed to make it better, I would take the extra time to do it. I have never been the kind of person just to say, you know what, it's just fucking done. I remember at the magazine, Mark Sullivan, being forced to just say, I have to give the file in. And me having like compassion for him, like, fuck, I know we can make it better. Pat was always great at rewriting stuff, you know. Bridges, as a snowboarder and a snowboard writer, he is one of my favorite writers, but not just talking about captions and fucking, I don't know who's sponsored. He's just a good writer.
Yes.
And a champion fucking human. But I watched him to understand, I better get my stuff done in this time, you know. So, yeah, you know, here's the thing. You just don't want to be this person that's going to make it hard on anyone because you can. Mm-hmm. That's bad craft. That's indulgent. That's being a dick. Blah, 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 blah. So, you know, if you can make people comfortable around you, you're all going to get your job done. You know, we're all aiming to make some scratch and pay our bills. Why not size it up and say, if I can, don't clink the dish. It makes it hard on my ears. Mm-hmm. Think about that all day. It's this like this audible riffraff all day. But she just do it to me. You know, you just tell that person's not, team player, whatever you want to call it, you know. So when I set the tone for a logo job, $500, $50, $50,000. I always say to them, I'm yours. I'm working for you. I'm not making this for my portfolio. I'm making it for you. You wake up with it. So therefore, let's get past, you hurt my feelings. Let's get past this perception that I'm some big name with the book. By the way, the book is in the 8th printing and on Abrams Books. It's 256 pages, 8 by 10, and sold all over the world. But you motherfucker, they fucking told me it wouldn't sell past 4,500. We're in the 8th printing, 64,000. Anyway,
love that.
Well, you have to understand when you go into the big city, New York, and the guy, I shouldn't call her motherfucker. She was very nice, very professional person. Say, Aaron, it's not going to be. You'll be lucky to get through 4,500. I remember saying 4,500, and I remember thinking, 4,500. That's a lot of magazines. That's a lot of records. If you're like, my buddy's Red Fang, heavy metal band, Red Fang, sold, first record 3,000 copies, whatever. That's a lot of copies. All the band still makes money. I remember thinking, like being thankful. She said 4,500. And then realizing it was a bad thing. She only used to do one print, but I didn't give a shit. If I sold 45, 450, or 45,000, I was going to be down with it. And just basically setting the tone with them like, I am going to do everything to make this book awesome. From writing it, designing it, doing it, living it, making it, thinking it up, taking on a book tour, giving it to kids who didn't have money at the shows. Turns out that's $25 out of my pocket. I get them for, 17, 18 bucks and sell them for 40 or whatever it was. It's money in my pocket, but I don't give a fuck. I'm so far in the black with that stuff that, I didn't lose anything on it. I made enough on it that we should be afforded the opportunity just to hook a kid up. So no one ever saw that stuff, because if I saw some little shit waving her credit card, whatever, it was a Pavement lyric, waving her credit card in the air like she don't care, whatever it was, it's like, I'm going to buy the fuck out of that stuff. Hey, youngsters, you're missing a couple of these, because that's just going on someone's statement somewhere. If I saw the kid digging in his wallet, hey, Rudy, and I do this whole thing, let these motherfuckers buy what isn't nailed down. And then come on back, I got you. Well, these kids they get a little weepy, But you know what? That was done for me I remember at a Jesus Lizard, this singing outfit called the Jesus Lizard out of Chicago that I loved. This band I loved in the 90s. And I didn't have any money at the merch table. I just wanted to see the merch. And I was just looking, and the guy was like, "You want the record?" He gave me the record, 7-inch, and it was like, ooh, he didn't want to put it away is what it is. But he did that for me. And I remember that little moment. So to answer your question about like communication and relationships, it's like I just try to be, I've fallen from grace a couple times and got a little prickly or whatever. Larry Nunez and I had would have our battles. And Larry?
Not well.
Larry.
Yeah, Bubs knows Larry.
Of course. But anyway, he had no problem getting past all the perception, being like, "Hey, fucker, get this done." And I'd be like, "All right," "Hey, I hate you, Larry," whatever. I would say, back and forth. But I miss him. I miss him because he's a good little writer and he could, get shit done and make shit happen, Larry. But we had that relationship. That's something that you cultivate in a very crusty way. Mm-hmm. But you're still like basically just trying to meet the needs of Snowboard Mag when I was working with the boys. Jeff Baker being this diplomat, such just a voice of like order amongst all that J2s and people coming to the house, crazy. That Jeff, I could always go to him as like a hard drive and be like, "Where are we at?" And he'd just be like, he just would know, and then I'd, do a little bit of stretching of the truth or whatever it was to get it wiggle in and out of stuff. But he'd just say to me, "I know you, go sack out, but I need you up." Like someone's got to be the ringleader, right? But the relationship there was like, I'll do whatever you need. You just have to give me the right space and then give me a little warning. So like, he's kind of revving back up Snowboard, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to, just watch over it. I can't do the hour to hour and neither can he, but we've got a crew of kids that can, and he's got some people in place and can't really talk about it, but it should be out there. Because I come from the world where here we are, just a little old snowboarding, but Trans World ruled the earth. And then another mag called Snowboarder ruled the earth. This is 1990. I'm a little kid. There were a couple other ones that came out, Power Edge, if I remember correctly. Some other things. I'm screwing it up. But that's all I knew. So I bought both of those things. But I loved Medium Magazine because it had the edge that I would never get to see, the cool. It's just all Jared and Andy's buddies up here. My very favorite photo of all time snowboarding is a picture of one of the Seths. The Seths.
Neary and Seth Miller from the East?
Seth Miller.
Seth Miller.
It's from a Medium magazine, and I can just draw it. It's easier to just draw. It's in New Zealand, and it's just this. And this is before I got out west, I think. But it's just this, right? And then, it's just this. It's an edge, and then the plume taken off, and him like fucking out there. I don't know if he's 8 feet, 18 feet, or whatever feet. I don't know.
But it's like the top of a wind lip or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we did not have that where I'm from. And it was somewhere down in New Zealand. And I remember just being and it was this big in a zine. So, if Medium could exist, we could make our own little crap. I had a zine in high school called Drapzine. And then out of that came a thing called Poke. My buddy ended up making 15, 20 issues of the thing. And they got into music and all kinds of cool stuff. My buddy Eric Campbell. And then, did I add Eric Campbell to the people I'd take heli boarding. I fucking didn't, did I? I should have.
think you did.
I did.
Let's
Brian
throw him in
Derrick.
that heli.
He better be in that heli.
Throw him in the heli.
What am I talking about? I'm just thinking the first
Get him a
initial push.
beacon, throw him in the heli.
He came out with his girlfriend, and it was just like Campbell. So I remember like loving that zine because like listen, if there's no magazines right now, why? Well, there's reasons for that. So get this snowboard going. Pat with his slush, get it going. He hit me up. I can't really work on it, All I had to do with snowboard was just kind of revive it, get some stuff out and get the little, to get the little thing going and make a couple changes, and then hand those keys to a kid and say, go, I can't be involved. So that's really exciting because even though Transworld and Snowboarder ruled the earth, I had Skin Tight. Do you guys know what Skin Tight is?
I've heard of it.
Skin Tight was Dave England's mini zine.
Mini zine.
I'm missing one. As a guy who collected record zines and all this kind of bullshit, you could have those things, and find those things and seek those things out and this weird little completionist kind of, whatever. There just needs to be that shitty thing. That's why when I worked with the mag, Snowboard Mag, there were these Quebecois kids that did these funny kind of jackassy videos called
Quebecois kids. Quebec.
There was a funny name to them. It was a bit about 2002, 4.
I can't remember.
Yeah, well, Bridges would always be like, "Oh, the so and so gang," and they were making this kind of like, kind of gonzo like skits, and then some, rails and schmails and bullshits, whatever it was. I love that stuff because it's just you can go hold the camera and get your buddy being a fucking lug nut, fucking something up, or just being a whatever. And that's exciting because that's what snowboarding really, open skateboarding. That's what I held close because when I got into skateboarding, Santa Cruz ruled the earth, Powell ruled the earth, but I bought a John Lucero, which you knew the story, which was like, these are just some dudes, they're using the same shit the other guys do, but it's theirs out of their garage. And it felt crusty and indie, and it was like there was no license for that. So when I go back and look at my life and how I started, here's the deal: these fucking jock assholes. And by the way, 27. This is my 30th year out of high school. Any jocks from my fucking class? We won. We had better bands, better everything. Anyway, we won. This is a little stock report for those fucking dipshits, but. They made their decision back then. We made a decision to have a skateboard. It opened everything. You could make your own bands, your own zines, your own things, your own stuff, your own language, your own clothes. So when I got to the magazines and I saw things becoming big, I remember one year at one of the big trade shows. Listen, it was fashionable to bitch about going to the trade show.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember just going, are you fucking kidding me? I'm not going to name the name, but it would be Pat Bridges. It was someone else. It was someone else in the building at Snowboarder magazine. Some surf shit. Complain about having to go to these things. And I was like, man, you eat, you drink, you get to hang out with Ricky Melnick. What the fuck is your problem? There's stuff, there's things. The first one I went to, I brought a box of stickers home in '95. I saw Tony Alva get in a fight with his girlfriend, arguing about something. Tony Alva in the parking lot outside of that thing. I was a grom, just excited to get squeezed in. That's where I learned, to anyone listening, if you want to get into the trade shows, here's how you do it. One guy gets a pass. Maybe you get 2 passes. One guy goes in and gets your buddy's pass, and you bring each person in after that. I've done this many times.
The old shuttle.
You just do it. You get them in and say, don't touch anyone, don't eat anything, don't whatever, just whatever. That's how we did it. And we were in there, and I remember people complaining when I got to the magazine, and Snowboarder magazine. I was living in, Del Vista, Del Taco, fucking whatever it was, Sunbaked, whatever, Orange County. But we got to go to Vegas once a year. It was so fun. A gamble. Evan Rose, that pile of shit. He was all drunk and fucking whatever, and he threw down $25 on some number and hit it. And that's $8.75, I think is what that is. $8.75. I love roulette. It's my favorite thing. $8.75, and he was so drunk he started to rip up started to rip up the $100 bills they gave.
Oh
him.
my God.
In my wallet, I have a shred of one of those $100 bills. And then at that same event, we were at this table. Chief was there, and Bridges, and all of us from the from their mag, and at that same session, I hit my first $20 bill on a 34 and was hooked forever. In that same session, Evan took his shirt off, ripped chest hair off his thing, and went and sprinkled it on the table for good luck, and almost got us all kicked out. Like, this fucking happened. I mean, I'm right there like laughing my ass off. And, I don't even know what the fucking question was, but
yeah, I don't know how we got there, but I like it.
But this came from a world of like, I'm just so thankful I got to see all that stuff and not be squeezed out of some, what everyone else is, doing, be it relationships, be it whatever. I just got to see the wild side a little bit. I got to see a rental car get fucked up beyond recognition. Pat Bridges, you beautiful creature. I watched him hit a Mexican speed bump about 11 or 12 inches tall at 50 miles an hour. I was in the car at 50. I mean, you bend. I'm 800 pounds, and Pat was, whatever Pat was, 115 pounds. We bent the thing. I drove that little VW rental.
He bent the car.
It was bent. It was fun. He hit a curb straight on. The car just kind of does this. It just kind of goes like, ugh. I hit it in the front. So, I got to experience that with these fucks. It was great.
Pat said something interesting about you.
Oh, here we go.
Because you've done a bunch of promo work over the years, He kind of said $0 or $50,000. That's kind of what Draplin's program is with clients.
Yeah.
Use your mouse finger for good. I think you heard you say at your shows.
Yeah.
You want to elaborate on how that process works?
Yeah, there's just the idea that like some of the greatest stuff I've ever made came with a big asterisk of like, there's a chance we're not even going to happen. That comes from skateboarding and snowboarding, because when I got to go to that first trade show and see all that stuff going down, that was in the sea of like, remember 95? And how old are you, Iso?
I am, I don't like to date myself on air. Paul or editor, let's cut this number out.
So that's 3. I thought you were up closer to my age. So that's 3 years difference, because the idea is if you said you were 50, because we're coming up on 50, my set, right? Were you at the trade show in 95?
Yes.
Okay.
Since almost everyone since 93.
Okay, so check it out. So you were at the trade show in 95 doing it up. There were like 500 snowboard brands.
Yes.
Shove It, Skate, Shred, Slam, 20 S's, I remember. And I got a sticker from each one of them. We're just excited, to be around all this cool stuff, and that quickly, got eaten up. And it was just like, if that could happen there, how did those things start? Well, they weren't even with budgets. They were just on a whim with a bunch of buddies. So I got to see that. So when someone come to me and they have the kind of tail between their legs, like, oh, we just don't have a big budget, like, that's just not a dirty word to me. I mean, obviously I can't pay my Wells Fargo rent and shit with little budgets, but why is that a dirty word? Well, union started small, and it turned into a sizable deal for me. Cole started small, but it was a risky thing. Snowboard, shit, there were years where there was really, I remember having to fight those guys and be like, listen, I have to be paid because I have like, you're staying at my house, Some of those guys didn't even get paid for the first couple of years, these bakers and, Nunez's and shit. So I love that. I love that stuff. So I just keep that space open, because designers, or just probably good, solid business people, they're good at saying no. And I'd rather be good at saying yes and being creative with that. Now, listen, something comes down the line, some fucking energy drink or something, don't call. I'm not interested, It's just not my jam, Craft beer, insufferable. It's just not my, I don't, here's the dark one, and here's the medium one, here's the red one, here's the light one. Who the fuck does this stuff with their lives? Well, people do. And I'm just not interested. So, when some kid comes to you and says, here's our idea, what do you think? We don't have a big budget. It's like, well, then what can you do? So
I have a perfect segue, because I know that you basically made the Drink Water logo very recognizable. I have a guest question from Brian Fox. Hold on. What do you want to say?
I didn't make it. They made it. I just tuned it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So still, but I've heard that this was on the more lower side of budgets. So
Brian Fox.
Let's get this question from B Fox. Here we go.
Hey, how you doing, Bomb Hole listeners? Hi, Chris. Hi, Stone. Hello, Aaron. Aaron, I would like to know how you got from the space of being a graphic designer for other companies, doing logos and type fonts and what you do, and at what point did you think, shit, I make all these things, I could just make them for myself? And at what point did you turn that into Draplin Design Co. as a merch company alongside a design company? And was that awkward? What do you know? Were you like, oh shit, what if someone doesn't want to walk around with my name on their chest? Or, tell us, the viewers, about what that felt like. And maybe now that's also like how everyone is changing their life into, they are a brand. Everyone is a brand. Maybe that's disgusting. Maybe it's wonderful. Thank you. Enjoy your day. Thanks for always having an interesting insight, Aaron. Goodbye.
I love that. I love that guy, man. He's always been cool. He's one of those guys that thinks before he speaks. He just stops himself and he'll have this really sort of. There's an interesting angle to be Fox. I don't know what to make of him sometimes because he'll come out of option A, B, and C. A is always like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes just to get to the top of that thing. He gives me a lot of D's and E's, and I always like that about him. He's just a thoughtful character. So that's me being nice, but let me actually get down to the brass tacks with that motherfucker. You ready for this? No. I think the thing, like, once again, drink water. I don't think I was paid. I just like the idea that they were doing that. I love a Coke as much as anybody else, but I know it'll fucking mess you up. I got to get away from that shit. When I do, I drop weight. But when I'm having one, not every day, but a couple of weeks, it's something. But I have friends who've just said no to all of it. And you really see some changes, not just in being big or whatever, but you see changes in lots of other things. And it's like the idea that some energy drink's going to kind of tell you it's energy schmenergy, just bullshit. It's just sugar water, right? Those guys to have a political perspective on that, not about just what you're putting in your body, but about how to make money. That's really inspiring about that guy. So try to, that's why I love to contribute anything to that. And really all I did was just to do a tune-up to make sure everything was sort of like, just sound mechanically, right? Spaces and stuff. So to answer his question, here's the thing. As graphic designers and as makers, it's, when I worked for Nixon, you'd make a T-shirt and then they would sell a shit whack of them through the Pacific Sun. Was it Pacific Sun?
PacSun.
Yeah, PacSun.
Sorry. It's been a while, but PacSun channel. If you were able to get in there, you could slay it. And they would have these like either 8x8 or 6x6 cubes, and you'd go up and be like, there's 6 things. You get 2 D.C.s, 1 Etnies, a couple skate brands, a couple things, and then, Nirvana or whatever the fuck it was, right? There's just these classic things, a smiley face, okay, whatever. I remember we had a Nixon, and it was dictated. We need a royal blue shirt with a white Nixon. Okay, done. So our color was red, but it was just like this whole shot, And we learned the commerce side of this stuff. So here's the thing. I would make my fun stuff for myself just because I liked it. Field Notes comes from a place where it wasn't because I was trying to make a business. It's because I didn't have my own. My heart was broken when I would go to the art store and it would be these convoluted bullshit things that were expensive and dumb and basically trumped up, but that's a shitty word. Basically built up to be something more than they were, and then it's $15.99 for this book when it should just be like Muji. Muji? IKEA-ish. Mm-hmm. Muji is this Japanese brand, very utilitarian, beautiful. Their little memo book is probably $1.99 or $2.99, and you go through them and you use them and you go buy another one, and it's beautiful stuff, but it's a fair price. They make it for next to nothing somewhere far away, but it's this sort of a democratization of design, right? So, for me to have that first taste of like, I can make my own shit. I mean, you're tasked with doing it for Nixon because that's your job through Cinco Design. And I did my job. It wasn't that hard. It was fun. It was always cool. People got to travel and okay. But we didn't make that money. When I made some goofy graphic, be it D.D.C on my shit or whatever, and you make that buck, that is the sweetest dollar you will ever make. It's not about getting ahead as much as it's like, I can stop it, start it, control it, do everything. I can't talk about it on the air, but I worked for a small tech company that rhymes with schmapple. Okay? They make iPhones. I'll never be able to talk about the project. That's what you run into the world I get to work in sometimes. Never get to even talk about it. Nope. You sign an NDA this thick. I don't know if you can get that into the wide screen there. Scary. That sucks. I want to talk about working for Apple, but I can't ever talk about it. Fine. When you make your own shit, all you get to do is talk about it. All you get to do is say, hey, take a hat, have a thing, whatever. And it is moving to me now that in my life, this much is merch. Why? Because it's bullshit suns and peace. I bought you guys some stickers for your skate doors.
I love it.
Steak dorbs and your fucking split boards and your goddamn wiggle biggles and your goddamn snake boards and all the other shit you guys are wearing. It's fucking skiing. By the way, my name is Aaron James Draplin. I'm 47 years old. I need to just on the air while we're here, just let you guys know that I just did a set of skis. And I'm trying to come to terms with it.
It's okay now in this world.
Thank you. It's
all right.
These fucking pole bangers with their goddamn, I'm not going to go as far as saying snowblading on snow. I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go there. But my buddy Fank from Ride, he works for J Skis, and he called me up and said, just Draplin, shut up. He's right.
It's a new world.
You know what, man? If they're riding this thing, this table down the hill, and they're outside, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's the mentality.
I know, but I just remember
a different time.
I just remember being proud of the fact that we made the hill fun.
Yep.
And then they were, they weren't. But you know what it comes back to? 1990, and some assholes giving each other medals and shitting on us. That's stupid. That's 32 years ago. Who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
We won, by the way. We won. So when you make these little things, and they're just goofy little things, here's the idea. To answer his question, it's like Brian's, when you go into it and say, I just want to make a dumb little skull thing. Now, whether or not someone likes this because it's a funny little skull, I'm not really concerned. There is no business plan. It's just fun to make something that says skull, right? And the idea that you put these things out there, it's like you have to be open to the fact that you're probably going to lose all the money on this thing. What happens when you start to sell a couple? That is just the right amount of taste in your mouth to be like, this could be something. So, for me to make this junk, which is just about going out. This was a B-side, by the way, for a big festival that they just passed over. I saw something in it. I sell a mountain of this shit. And the idea is what? The psychedelic outside? It's psychedelic here in Utah. It's psychedelic in Idaho. Whatever. I'm going into Wyoming tonight. But this means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. This is not brought to you by Nike or anyone. It's by the D.D.C. It's a non-entity, whatever you want to call it. And I don't even have a D.D.C. logo on it, but it's just meant to be like we used to make things like this. So when you get that blood, the taste of that blood in your mouth of like, I don't even have to work for snowboard brands. I don't have to work for any kind of brands. I can just be my own mess. And that becomes a brand in itself. And then your tenants are like saying yes. And your tenants are saying, I'm going to keep these things at fair prices. Here's where the rubber meets the road. These are $2.99. They're not $5.99. Now, I go on the road with that. I got a van full of posters and shit out there because we're going to this big show in Fort Worth. Those posters are $25 at the show, $30 at the show, whatever. They're not $130. Now, I get pissed because this is where the indulgences come in. Hey, they're screen printed, aren't they, Draplin? Oh, they're fucking screen printed. They're lovingly toiled over by whatever. They're lovingly toiled by my buddies at Caesar Palace. Oh, they're made by one of the greatest living graphic designers of his generation. Well, whatever, fuck, get past it. I made it, whatever, gives a fuck. By the way, kicker, it's a fair price because you can take any one of those right there and start adding ones and zeros. I don't do that shit. And I have built an empire, small, on ethical pricing and ethical, hopefully, behavior, and how to just say, you know what? This is dumb as shit. Pizza slice, but you're going to put that on that big triple chamber graphics bong you have at the house. And, your better half has to pull the carb from 6 feet away.
Place for it.
Whatever. I got to get into that stuff because, I see these guys with the vape units and shit and the little blue lights. I just want some little fun thing to stick in my mouth like that. But this was just because I love a piece of pizza. But here's the thing. When your 45-year-old fucking buddies, you're 47, you go, Draplin, another goddamn, what is this? Listen, when an 8-year-old comes up to your table, merch table, and he's like, Dad, can I get the space shuttle? Because he just learned about the space shuttle. That is the fucking coolest thing going. Because it's not about hip cool, ironic. It's kind of ironic what I do, you know. Why work for a client when you can just not necessarily rake all the money in, just have complete control, you know, and make little goofy little general things like this. When you see it become something for someone else, that's really exciting because that's what we're trying to get to. Remember, you guys come from snowboarding, you're in it, still doing this stuff. Stay healthy, rip it up, land those tricks, all that shit. But that's far away from me, that world. It's like, you know, I don't know. It's like when you get that little taste in your mouth of like, I don't have to have a license to do this stuff. I can get outside of that world and make things that can become many, many things. When we're in the snowboarding world, sometimes it's only for us. And that scared me when I was in that world because the language, so good up there, dude. Fuck, man, I'm so sick of hearing that shit. You know, there's a big world that this stays on flat ground, you know, things called cities, you know, places, you know, with like cement and stuff. I get it. But when you make stuff that goes for someone in the Midwest, that isn't just up on a mountain, it was really exciting for me. So, you know, to see these numbers and whatever these things mean now, the idea that I was even able to get to 50% of my intake with this stuff, that is, what, 40% more than I ever thought I'd do?
So 70% of what you do is
it's about 60%.
60% is
and
merch.
Then what, you know, the idea is when you start picking them off, then you get a big old field note in there. The crew in Chicago, thank you. You know, that's incredible.
Are you still part of Field Note?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, and then you get a big old skill share with all these classes and courses that I teach on the road, speaking about myself. I know, megalomania, all that shit, but we were talking numbers. We were talking some of the privileges I've had and all the numbers. Before the pandemic, I was getting up to 400. I was at 455 or something shows I've done in the last 10 years. So if you break that down, that's an average of 45 shows a year, right? Sometimes 2 a week, 3 a week. Okay. Somewhere in there, you get down to this little appendage. Look at this, little zoom in on that shit there. You get to this little shit appendage, and that's called client work. That's my smallest thing now.
Wow.
And sometimes they are giant. Evan Rose, you know, running for mayor of Burlington next year. I want to announce it right now.
That's not true.
No, it's not true. Okay. Fuck Evan Rose. Anyway, my D.D.C. business manager, Evan Rose, we're working on a big project right now. I can't talk about it, but if we can get it, we'll talk about it. But
he's your business manager. Yeah, well, that's awesome.
Here's the thing. When something comes in that's too big for me to wrap my head around, I bring in the big guns.
Evan.
Because Evan knows how to do it. He did it at Burton for all those years. He just knows how to, he sees what I don't see. I, you know, go right into all this nerdy design shit. But Evan, yeah. So we've done a couple big jobs that way. And then he takes a cut and he works for the Sanders Institute, Bernie Sanders, you know, Senator Bernie Sanders. That's what he does and works for that team in Burlington where he lives. But I bring him in and we knock these things out sometimes. And it's like, that just gets away from me, you know, but it's like that is still within just one little knuckle pretty much. The rest of this stuff, the manifesting, here's the fun part about this. To do something like this, to do stuff like these, when this goes to a church, and they don't say the word motherfucker like the rest of us do. It just goes to some general idea of saying, hey, be nice to each other. It elevates past the world I even know. Or goes to some youth group. That's pretty cool to see the power of this stuff, right? So I do a lot of those things, and on top of that, have the ability to just say, here's the graphic, print as much as you want, strip the D.D.C. off it. I just like the idea of putting a heart out into the world, just to give this to a 6-year-old, who, by the way, is going to change the world because they're going to get past all the fucking garbage that we were given, right? And maybe this can be one little thing to just talk about that, right? You know, whatever that means. So that's really interesting to me. And not, you know,
we're pretty small and tribal in our little snowboard community here, and it's cool that you've kind of zoomed out, got the bird's eye view, and those are much bigger messages of life that anybody can relate to. You've gotten, you know, you haven't got your horse blinders on. You're like looking at the thing from a bigger point of view.
And maybe if you I mean, sure, that's me getting a little grandiose, right? But if you scooch back in for a second and say, wait, I just want to make cool merch and sell cool merch and just call it. That's okay too. Because sometimes it's just that. So like, you know, we do these merch shows in Portland where it's just people getting a little buzzed, having some, you know, $17 pineapple drink, you know, and by the way, why is it people who ask for a deal, you know, the stickers are $3. It's like, you know what? You get 5 of them, $10. Who cares? You know, whatever. Everyone who always asks for a deal is always carrying some $17 pineapple. And then you go a little further, you look a little past it, you know, and you kind of go, you're wearing a fucking $250 Arc'teryx jacket. No, even better than that. A $400 Arc'teryx. You get the fuck out of here, you know.
Looking for a discount on a sticker
I just kind of say, you know what? I'll just give to the next kid, Herbie, whatever you want. Watch, buddy. Grab it, pick it, and just walks away with some free shit. I'm going, get out of my fucking table. Because, it's fucking weird. Like, it can just be that sort of immediate, too. Because a lot of people make their living that way. So, I like to have, all across the board. It's like I have a new website coming, and you get to see everything for the first time. My website was built in 2002 or something. It's old, crusty, but still generates this much out of my mess with PayPal links. You can't even find the shit. Guess what it's going to work on? Are you guys ready for this? Some 2022. It's going to work on phones. How about that? You know what else is going to work on, man? iPads. How about that? So we're in trouble. It's going to be cool. And I developed it all summer long with my buddy Gonzo out of Gresham and my little Moonbeam Lee, is doing all this sort of the sales side of it because she does all the merch shipping for us. Can we keep our lives small and then be able to offer all this stuff? I have over 100 hats now. I have over 100 patches, 100 stickers, and it's all fair priced, so we'll keep doing that because we get to turn it off and turn it on when we want, Now, when Evan brokers the big deal, it's off to the races. That's still just inside here. This is the scariest thing I have, because they can start me, stop me, break your heart. I just had a job fall through the cracks that might have been upwards of $200,000. I'm not saying that. It's a big boom, I don't know. Got to get some of that Wasatch Style Wars shit here. Wasn't there a guy that had a puma on a chain in the backyard from Tech 9? Wasn't there someone like that?
A puma on a chain?
Yeah, we built that up in our brains because
MFM or something.
Something to that effect. I don't know what the acronym.
Puma on a chain.
Well,
I like that.
It was kind of a Scarfacian sort of a thing because we'd always say, "What's up with that Tech 9 ad?" Whatever. And I'd say, "Who's the guy that's got like a porcelain, like ocelot or something in his driveway you have to go in there." I don't know where I'm.
What's an ocelot?
I don't even know. But like some kind of like Scarface. Like I remember Larry,
like a statue type of thing.
Yeah, no, just like a lot of flash, a lot of bling, a lot of
probably MFM.
Okay, something to this effect. We had this joke. It was right around the time when there was a tiger in the shitter on the Hangover or something. And we'd build it up in our heads that these kids in Tech 9 had like these big mansions and shit in Salt Lake and whatever. I don't know. I
wish that was the case.
I met a lot of those dudes. I mean, but nevertheless, yeah. The style, you got to be careful in Utah. There were style wars.
Easton owned Tech 9.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Just double checking.
Being very gentle here. Yeah. But no, what I will say, there is sort of a quality of like these kids that were all hip hopped out and shit. It was kind of like Utah, man. I was from Portland. What's the Portland? Oh, this little skinny jean,
tight
coffee.
pants.
Hey, listen, I know. And it's like, until you get me, in the Husky section at Target, and shopping for some bullshit, So, all this stuff. You come here and you get to see all the hikers and the bikers and the what a maniacs and shit. But we had that built up in our mind of like, you guys had a real point of view, I guess is what I'm getting at, So.
I wish we had been very as forward thinking about our logo as in our design as you were.
I remember you guys. I still have a Tech 9 binding box.
Sick.
That still works. The bindings were for a product shoot or something. By the way, I don't know if I ever even got to say this. Thanks for being part of our mag. That goes back 15 years.
Yes.
Because I know there was charges and bro deals and bullshits, but I loved putting Willie McMillan in any of our stuff. I don't think there's any.
We had him on this podcast. He was great.
Mm-hmm. Is it up?
It's an older one. It was an earlier one.
Because I only saw the video ones. I was just digging through the video ones.
No, it's on video too.
Oh, I got to go. Are they all on the YouTube?
Yep.
The YouTube. Yes, they are the YouTube.
I'm not on it. I mean, you can see a bunch of D.D.C shit, but I don't have like a channel or nothing. Anyway.
So here we go. We got a couple more things. We got staples of the show that we always do. One of them is name that video part.
Everybody's got to play.
Okay, let's do it.
What's your confidence level 0 through 10?
For what kind of a video part? Shred?
Snowboarding video part.
Fuck, man. I don't know. It's every kid looks like Ikon from Finland to me. I don't give a shit. Who are these new names? Well, he was going big one year.
Ikon Backstrom?
No, just Pat would always come up with these names.
Pat would come up with
these some new kid. Pat. By the way, Pat Bridges. This is Pat's maneuver. Okay, and I'll just call him out in the show right now. He likes to come to Portland, land. Be with some entourage of young up-and-comers, call me on his way to Mount Hood. That's the first one. Or call me as the plane's taking off. So thanks, Pat. I'm 3 miles from the airport. Thanks, Pat Bridges. Okay, anyway, what's the play the part.
Okay, here we go.
How do we do it? Oh, man. Well, first of all, I'm going to have to put it somewhere into the early 90s.
That is not correct.
Not correct.
Nope.
Okay.
That's what I thought, too.
I was hoping it was going to be the No Effects song that we learned from, I don't even know what movie it was. I got to be honest with you. I wasn't a big movie guy. I remember The Hard, the Hungry, and the Homeless.
Yes.
Because Matt was in it. But I lost track, man. You know, we weren't watching that shit out in Portland. We didn't even have it's very fashionable in the Northwest to say I don't even own a TV, you know, but we didn't really, we didn't even have one. And we saw them at events, but I lost track of all like the Mac Dogs and the politics. And I lost track. I might've been better to find a Whitey stuff, not because we kind of got to know him, but friends would be in it.
Yeah.
But
Kingpin.
What's that from?
So that is, he actually asked a guest question on the show already. Maybe that'll help.
Brian Fox was in it.
That's not correct. Well, come on.
Danny Cass.
There it is. That's correct. Danny,
why wouldn't it be
Danny
a Misfits?
from the grenade video? And what you got yourself for, it's more of a participation word. It's a bomb hole
Everybody
cooler
gets
filled
one.
with bomb hole merch.
Listen. I need a cooler for the vans.
Oh, that's a road.
So yesterday in Idaho, listen. You do a search for coolers, and you get to see all that Yeti bullshit. I am not paying $300 for this. So then I went into like a Walmart, and they were like $9.99 or something. And I was like, fuck, I have like 3 of those at the house because we've been in a pinch on the road. I'm going to use this.
There
By
it
the way,
is.
does this come with a recite?
It's got some merch
man.
inside, too.
Yeah. So that's we got
So
some mugs,
excited.
some the top's got the top the switch.
Okay.
Everything's available bombhole.com. We got look at that.
Eyes light up.
Hey, look at that. Look
By
at
the way,
that.
let's just chill out. When I go over those Rockies and the van's going, toot, 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 this is the first thing going out the fucking window.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
just go over the Rockies. Fucking,
Look at
Wow.
the air freshener. Look at the air freshener. Stony Buds on there. In the
So
so
Yeah,
wait,
that's
this
right.
is where we do a little segue into all this cool merch you got.
Yes, this is you can plug it. It's all available at bombhole.com.
Oh, that is the crotch of Dave Doman. I know that from a mile away. I've been right in it. Oh, look at all this cool shit. Well, so yeah, man, this is cool. Well, listen, man, if we're I got a beanie and a hat. So I don't know if I could do this hat.
Yeah,
my head is.
Yeah, let's be
this
honest.
is sweet. I got a bomb hole beanie, man. Now, what do these go for?
Oof, I think $20.
Yeah.
Something like that. 20.
Just shut the fuck up for a second. Listen, people.
Ish.
They're $24.
24.
What'd you pay for your parking today? What'd you pay for that pack of Cools? What'd you pay for, it's $20. Have a little pride. Get the goddamn, now, I'm going to be checking with the top brass here. And if I don't see at least 100 sold from this, I'm going to be pissed off and I'm going to get all the names. So get one, okay? Now that's called the hard sell.
Wow, that's great.
You threaten hard.
We got to come with a different angle.
Oh, man. Well, socks too, man. Cool. I saw these when I was digging around last night. These are cool. Who makes your socks?
Those are a company called Fuel, local company.
Yeah, the
a guy
Park
I ride dirt bikes with. Actually,
I'm going through some.
Your girl might like that style of hat.
The whole thing's coming.
You can dig through. We'll go through the warehouse after.
Yeah, we'll take you to the warehouse, see what you like.
On 2200 North this afternoon. You guys know why the streets are so wide in Salt Lake City?
Why is that?
To turn a stagecoach around.
Oh, really?
You didn't know that?
I did not know that all my years here.
Mikey LeBlanc would probably know that, But
so
we got one more.
We got to do the
name that video part.
pub. Oh yeah, this one's for the listeners too. Here we go. So you don't answer this one. This is kind of like a little listener interaction. If they know the song, they get to comment in, and they get a little prize pack Draplin. So here we go.
Wow, that's a tough one.
Yeah, that's a classic. I would have get that one, but You know what that does, Draplin? It also, we feel as though it kind of preserves the culture of snowboarding a little bit. You know, makes people think about the old times.
Well, check it out. Do people get those?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay,
wow.
yeah. I mean, cause
some kids go and, like, before they even watch the whole thing, they go right to that section and everyone gets that.
Well,
there's a winner quick.
Well, tell me this much. There was a distribution company called Ally up in Portland.
Yes.
That did all of them, you know, or some of the big properties, you know, and I remember making like a catalog for them or something, but can you even get all the old Whitey videos everywhere or somewhere?
I think Whitey Kingpin still has a site.
I mean, we'll just say anything for that matter, because, you know, in 95 when everyone was making something, where is, you know, Pat would know this, but where is an archive for all that shit? Because, I mean, I want to go watch some of that. I don't need the DVD. You know, I remember when we made Revenge of the Grenards, right? Mm-hmm. It came with all this cool packaging. I kept one of those because it was a fun afternoon with Amon and everyone, you know, all those fucking
A lot of them are up on YouTube.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
I think people bootleg. Like,
they bootleg and put them on.
Well, yeah, because the idea is like, I wouldn't even know where to find. I mean, you can go, I guess, look, Hard, Hungry, and Homeless.
That's up.
That's from like 91.
Yeah.
You know, like probably, first of all, it'd only be on VHS.
It's on YouTube. I've watched it on there. We've linked it in the show notes.
I'd want to see just Hale's part because that was some of the elixir that propelled.
That's what got me out west. That movie.
Where are you from?
I'm from Vermont.
That's right.
Yeah, Colchester.
Oh, so
that movie is what, you know, I wanted to go meet Tarquin and I wanted to live in Breck.
When we went in early 93 out to Breckenridge to go on spring break, we get up there right away, and one of the greatest Garys in my life made this happen. A guy named Gary Hansen.
I remember Gary.
Oh my God, my favorite Gary
Greatest
Hansen in the world.
Garys of
Fucking
my
Gary,
life.
always running up to you. Is my imitation of Gary Hansen. Run up to you like this, because he's always holding a drink, getting that last pump in to let me know what's going on. You know, that last some sort of a little umbrella in it. Gary Hansen, God damn it, love that guy. And he gave us tickets. Maybe he had some tickets, so we had like an afternoon. We didn't have to pay the whatever it was because we had our days figured out. 2 up at A Basin, 2 hiking, you know, the pass. 1 day, you know, the pass. 1 up at Copper. You know, I don't think we even could afford Vail. So we get up there. We're on the way up the hill, and we hear, "Yeah, Tarquin," and he went by. Now I know this is just a little shitty thing, but I'll never forget that because that was us being in it. We saw him in the magazines. We saw the stuff. We saw the riffraff. And we got to be right there. That night, we also went to Vail for a party. And the word was J2 was going to be there. And we knew about this name, you know, and it was like, I don't know. That was just enough for me to be like, wow, you know, I knew these names from the magazines because we lived it. We lived it. But, you know.
Did you go to that party in Vail?
Yeah, we walked around. We didn't know really any of these people.
I was probably there.
Of course you were. What years were you there?
That's the year I moved out to Vail.
Okay.
And I met J2 that year.
Well, then did you know Matt Hale?
Yeah.
Of course. I'm sorry. Matt Miner?
The names.
These are all Traverse City guys. Scott Shumsky. Yeah. These are all dudes. Derek Denoyer, Tad Lautner. But these are all guys that lived in Buffalo Estates or something like that over in that first turnoff. And was it Dillon?
Dillon, yeah.
Yeah, first turnoff. And there was 6 dudes or 7 dudes to an apartment. And we just crashed with them and we'd all go into Breck and ride. And, you know, I don't know. You know, my dad experienced that shit in the late 60s. He did this stuff. He'd go out to ski and things and take my mom and stuff. And we went out and do this. But I just remember that moment of like, you said that's what brought you out west. It's like those little video things. Why I ask about like, one of the things I always try to ask, I guess it's on a larger cultural level about snowboarding, is I always talk to Bridges and say, Bridges, are there still kids moving west and throwing it all away?
Yeah.
There are.
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely.
We actually I get some DMs like,
on a regular
what's
basis.
it like if I move out to Utah?
But I've also heard the contrary, which is like, no, man, with weather.com, you can see where it's pounding, get a quick ticket, and tomorrow morning, fly out that morning, and we used to plan our shit. Like there was a good chance it was not going to snow.
I don't think we had the money though to be flying around.
I mean, I'm just saying, like in this new app world, where it's like, okay, why fuck around throwing it all away and going to the next hotspot, Tahoe, Jackson Hole? You know, all these things shift. I remember when Utah was a place.
Yeah.
You know, Jess Gibson came here at that time. My buddy Jess.
Robot Food.
Yeah, man. You know, Jess came out here. And that's what got him here. We're about the same age. And, you know, but these things shift. So I always wonder about that because I just hope so. Because not that it was cathartic, but it did teach me that there was a big wide world. And I know it's going to piss all your East Coast listeners, but you got to get out here where it gets big because things change and the speed changes. One of the biggest things I remember at Bachelor, the girls went just as fast as the dudes. It just wasn't the same back home. It just wasn't the same. It was badass. They were just hauling ass, and we better get our act together. So when I went home, everything looked small. And we were hitting jumps in ways where it's like, you don't just hit the jump and then hit the next jump. You gap the two because you start going fast.
Mm-hmm.
You learn that confidence. And if any of the little rats are listening here, hey, you got to go, and you got to go try that because it's never going to taste that good when you're 42. If you're 22 years old and you take a year off of school, take 6 of your buddies and go try your hand in a Telluride or any of these places we've talked about because there's just something about that. You know where we saw it? Hot Dog the movie.
I remember that movie.
Of course,
classic.
Right? Yeah, I mean, just the idea of like, where do you even get a job and how do you do it and how we figured it out. I remember kids having to go back home, their tail between their legs. We never had to really do that, but it was just such a quintessential part of my youth to go out there and be afraid. I remember we got out there, we couldn't find an apartment in Bend. We had no references, a little bit of money, nothing. When we finally got our apartment, the guy made us sign a lease for a winter, and we had to pay 3 or 4 months ahead of time. Luckily, we had it between the 3 or 4 of us that jumped into this place. And we were in. That night, we drive up to Hood for our first time to Mount Hood. And we're just new off the boat, right? We go up to Mount Hood that night, and there's a place there called the Thunderbird Lodge, right? So we're up there, and my buddy Derek, who brought us out to Oregon, from Michigan, he gets out. He's a Morrow rider at the time. Some kind of a rep rider, something like this, and he's on some team out there all of a sudden. That's our connection. And that night, we got to stay at the Thunderbird Lodge. We met Jeff Curtis, so cool. We met Robbie Morrow, so cool. Todd Franzen, is he?
I think he's doing better.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've just heard a couple little things here and there, but we met these guys that were in magazines. And Robbie Morrow, he slept right on the ground next to me. I slept near a closet. He slept in the closet, whatever it was. He didn't get one of the rooms. He was just another dude with us that night. I'll never forget that.
That's cool.
He was running the thing. He just crashed on the floor. We got to meet him. And I know if I talked to him today, he'd still be that same Robbie Morrow. I gotta look that guy up.
Yeah.
Why I talk about this, it was all happenstance for us. If we would have met J2 that one night when at that party you were at, whatever that was, it's all just these quick things. But I remember them. And you got to go find that shit, whatever that is. I hear about people doing it with rock and roll, people doing it with tech, with all sorts of shit. But if you're a snowboarder and you love that stuff, go do this while you can.
That's how you get the foot in the door, life-changing moments.
Well, kids will ask me, how do I get a job in this stuff? And it's like, man, you got to go and at least learn the language.
Yeah, that's the biggest question, right? How do I get
Go meet the people.
Yeah, you got to meet the people. Immerse yourself.
If you're one of those guys who are able to, be the ripper who can do this into his 34th year, that's amazing. I'm going to look all your shit up now,
Oh, he's got a lot of stuff. This guy's got an X Games medal.
I don't even know.
In the streets for street riding.
Well,
let's thank you. I appreciate
it. I'm not used to that world anymore because you have to understand, when I'm around Danny Cass, I was like, Danny, you got a foot away from George Bush. Take a little pot shot. And he was like, Draplin, you know how many guns are fixed on you? I didn't know how many. That's how
no, that's a good thought right there.
I just remember being like,
we got the shred with Danny just a couple months ago.
He's back ripping.
He's just ripping.
Well, of course. I mean, I know there's been some roller coastery there.
Yeah,
I've heard a couple
ripping.
little spiffs and niffs and things and whatever the hell. I hope he's all right, of course.
He's great.
I still try to keep in touch with my old buddy Matt Cass. Will be a brother forever with me, brother to me. But, the idea that, like, I just really like to sort of evangelize this idea of, like, going with your buddies and just going and throwing it away. Get a job at that place playing the Bob Marley. Do all that shit.
Yeah, snowboarding needs that.
It really, I just hope it exists because, Pat will just tell me different archetypes that are, Pat goes deep.
Yeah.
It still exists 100%.
I hope so. I hope so. Because I wonder if, like, with the magazines going away or maybe videos going away, I don't even know. Are there still videos and still parts?
Yeah, those are still, everything's all still cranking, yeah.
When I was in it with the boys making snowboard, I got to just glance at all and see the pulse of this stuff, right? Well, now it's applied to graphic design, and I can tell you some of the different video series that are Netflix and things, and a couple things I've been lucky to get into or whatever. But anyway, okay. What do we got? Some dice here.
So yeah, we got to pay the bills here real quick. Time for the pub beer crapshoot. Here we go.
Welcome to the Pub Beer Crapshoot.
Pub beer crapshoot. That's the Dave Chappelle saying clackety clackety clackety.
Let's say this is pretty impressive. This thing. Okay, what do we got here?
So what you got here? You found the dice. I've looked for the other ones. So first of all, we got to talk about pub beer for a second.
Yes.
What's their motto, Buds?
It's cheap, fun beer.
Well, if you're looking to go crush some can with the boys or women or whoever for that matter, and you're at 7-Eleven, you're looking at all the different beers, make sure you pick up the pub beer. It's affordably priced. I believe ethically priced was the verbiage that we heard Draplin using.
Yep.
It's they support the podcast.
This is out of Oregon. I knew that.
Right, yeah, 10 Barrels, their parent company. So they're Oregon. It's not one of those microbrewery brands that Draplin was roasting earlier. It's just a good old fashioned cheap beer. That's all it is.
Well, you guys remember beer, generic beer. Remember bulk food craze back in the, you were a little younger then. But remember the bulk food craze of the 80s and 90s? You get like a big bag of somethings. They also had just, like beer, just said beer.
Yeah, it just said beer on it, right?
That's kind of what they got going on here.
Yeah.
I know that they're thinking about that, but, hey, listen, at this point in my career, is the shit wet?
There it is.
Down the hatch.
Boom. Graphically speaking, that looks like a pretty solid print.
Because that's the graphics attract me to this.
So I go deep with this sort of like weird, sort of like, there was like beer was like you could get it with like food stamps and shit. It was like just generic food. Why would it be anything else? It's just flour. It's oats. It's these really sugar, and then they had beer, right? So I don't know if you could get it with whatever, but it was this. The funny part about it is this looks like a piece of apple to me. Like when you go all the way up to the other top, but you come crashing back down. Here's the thing. It's just cool because this liquid death shit is so fun and wild, and they're hiring all these cool artists and making all this cool shit, and it's awesome. Oh, sorry. It's awesome. That's Barack Obama looking for another logo. Chill out, Barry. Just fucking enjoy your time off. We miss you. Tell Michelle we miss you. When you look at this thing, it's like they got good type, they got good stuff, and it's like they're not. I see these floating around Portland because if Liquid Death can be so wild and ironic and funny and cool, there's a lot of people that are taking themselves very, very seriously on the artisanal front of like just anything. And listen, you can put whatever you want around a beer can. It can become this whole elevated kind of thing. And there's every kind of irony and every kind of cool and every kind of small batch and all that bullshit. And then you just have a beer. So that's cool. So if these guys are one of your sponsors,
oh yeah,
people, are you thirsty? Do you have hot pipes? You want something a little stronger than Liquid Death? Let me tell you about pub beer. I'm just saying.
I was sold. All
right, now
okay, what are we doing? We got dice here.
You roll this,
rolling the goon gear dice.
Whatever it lands on, you have to do something. Basically, it's like a game show.
Okay, a good strong 5.
Okay, here we go. 5. Would you rather have a tattoo designed by Grenier and tattooed by Eastone, or designed by Eastone and tatted by Chris? So, would you have him design it, me tat, or vice versa?
I got to go with you do the, you run the show with this. You're technical, but he brings just, I just like looking at you. I don't know what's the word for that. I've always just liked looking at you. There's just something I don't, what is that? What is that?
You're making me blush.
Well, I just, like the whole, like Bridges. I can just sit and look at Bridges and just love him, because he's Bridges. You understand? I get down to goddamn Bohunk, Southern California. I'm not going to be at the fucking beach in some Volcom shants, worrying about a fucking worrying about a fucking some uppers or lowers. I'm from Lake Michigan, man. Smallmouth bass, zebra mussels, fucking things up. Okay, so I don't go in the ocean, and we go down there. And who do I run with? I run with Pat Bridges, God, just a specimen, and Evan Rose.
Two specimens.
Oh my God. And then this pile of shit. And that's, there's Duke Kahuna, coming in hot from some big surf. I could give a fuck less. I just didn't even, they were just dime a dozen,
Duke Kahuna.
Just, just wasn't into that shit. And, I get it. I will say, I talk a lot of shit about a lot of things, but I will say I made a lot of cool friends from those magazines,
Truth.
On the snowboarding side, even down to, some of the fucking mountain bikers and shit. So, yeah.
Holy
How
shit.
about a Patreon question?
Yeah, hit a Patreon.
So, Patreon question. These guys get a chance to send in a question in advance. So
they make the show happen. We wouldn't be able to do it without the
Wouldn't be
Patreon
able to
members.
do
So
it
thank
without
you guys.
these guys. This is from Jeremy Hudson. Can you explain the history of your obsession with thick lines?
Yeah, of course. When you go back and you look at, a graphic design history, right? You go back and you go digging. There was a certain era, I guess we'll call it the pushpin era, and it was a certain group of people in New York City. And you'd recognize it when you go look. It looked like the late 70s, But out of that came this sort of weird, sort of surreal, all this stuff comes out of the 60s and stuff, so he's like a Peter Max. That's kind of thick lines, that guy, The Yellow Submarine looking stuff, right? So that stuff, goes into this kind of heavy illustrated thing with all these funny, Lyndon Johnson faces and, fucking with politicians and stuff. But somewhere there, these things came back kind of in the 70s and 80s to it's like an icon, just to tell a story of a really simple line. So what I love about it is in the most simple sense, it's just meant to communicate on the simplest of things. So throw me a Sharpie. And I mean, the idea about that, in fact, even throw me the blue one, the blue, the
fatty,
the big one.
I got a good piece of paper here.
No. The idea that just to communicate in the simplest of terms, the only things you need to communicate with this stuff, and just say, all right, there it is. Because it doesn't need another fold or a flap. I've been studying it while we've been sitting here. I'm thinking, what does this stuff need? Now maybe you get a couple of these, as this thing is sort of, we did a lot of this for Grenade, back in the day. But I love the fact that when you're finding these things, they're not on something cool. It's on something really like pedestrian, like the bottom of a cardboard box. And it's some of the greatest, simplest, confident design moves you've ever seen. And they're hidden. And I unearth those things simply by looking at, when you understand where graphic design came from and you see where it went up and down. Now, if you go 10 years later, you get into this the 80s where they're just getting like the technology buzz and they get to do all this digitized looking rudimentary stuff with computers. And it looks fractally and kind of sketchy and digitized because they're just starting to be electronic, right? Then you get 7 or 8 more years into that. Now I'm getting into the world of this stuff, and you see it touch snowboarding in the following ways. Do you remember Scott Klum from Morrow Snowboards? He was on the forefront of this stuff with this kind of cool David Carson-y, kind of scratch, kind of cool, weird, dreamy looking stuff, right? Okay. Well, that stuff was kind of frivolous, and it served a purpose, and it was just sort of arbitrary, just kind of, it just works. I don't know why. It's art, whatever. That had to happen, all the different eras. But when you come back to this stuff, it's just like a heart is a heart. And how do you tell it in the quickest sense? Because, the most recognizable symbols in the world, like a cross, a smiley face, they're like emojis, right? One of the most recognizable things in the world is the Nike swoosh. So you think about what it takes to make all those things. The Superman S is right up there with, scary things too, and, whatever, are up there too. But nevertheless, that when you look at that and kind of say, God, I know I'm looking at some of the art even here. I don't know what year this is from with this snowboard. Who's on that?
2004, Mark Frank Montoya shot by the kid Easton.
I only got handshakes from him, but I will say, on that shitty day a couple years ago, hard day for you, hard day for him. I really liked what he had to say. I didn't know him in that context. That day for J2 up there, but. I look at this stuff, it's like, man, that's a pretty burly maneuver, sure. But, I'm looking around here, it's like, you're seeing thick lines happen in that shitty skateboard, camera thing. Because when you boil it down, it can be done that way. So I know we can go as far as you want in some of this cool stuff. Like, look at the design of that boot. It's incredible, you know. Lots of extra flair and goodies, you know, on a 32 boot there. I used to know those designers for that stuff when I worked at the mags. But you boil that boot down, what is it? It's a this and a that and a this. And it's like, there's just something to that. And I don't want us to be able to have everything be so awesome all the time, you know. And yet, you'll see this in some of the coolest stuff like graffiti. Because it's just about streamlined communication. So a peace symbol, right? Hits you right in the face. So a lot of it is more of just a respect for restraint, you know. But I just love when you find it out in the world and you're just like, I just found one on a big thing, and all it was this. And it was Mount Lassen, which is some up in Northern California. By the way, that could be any volcano anywhere, right? You can see it on my feed. And yet they got to it from Mount Lassen in 1977 or something. And I just love coming across that shit. Like, the fun part about it is if I make a Mount Hood and I don't put Mount Hood on it, and then I go on a merch show in Boise, you just put it on the merch table and the guy goes, "Is that Mount Douglas?" And you go, "Yes, it is." I made it just for you, Boise. So, you know, the kid's like, "I don't see the Space Needle behind Rainier." No, it's hidden behind there, you know. Just it's a different angle of the city, because I'm up there trying to peddle Portland shit. So you learn the lesson, like, making merch, like, don't put Mount fucking Hood on that thing, because it could be a mountain for anyone, anywhere in the world, right?
Yes.
So there's fun little things, and yet I love the fact that we have a goofy thing for the, you know, Oregon coast or whatever, these regional sorts of things. You know, what would it be for the Wasatch? Well, there is a certain look, you know, and that's all it needs to be. I mean, I've already done many graphics when I've come here and done shows and stuff. But yeah, that's kind of the long-winded answer for why these things. Here's why, just to boil it down, I'll be done. You get surprised by it. That minimal amount of moves to tell that kind of a cool story, to be something for you and you different in a neat way. That's the power of graphic design. So, yeah.
Love it.
Okay, a couple of questions. Here we go. So we have a little section of the show we call Hot Takes. So it's kind of, we're going to try to keep this thing on the rails, because generally they're quick answers. Yeah. So let's keep that in mind.
All right. Just coach me, man. Are you trying to say I go a little deep?
No. I would say long-winded might be a little bit of a...
Boy, really let me know how you feel.
Yeah.
Okay.
So rather be kind of honest with you here. So we have the Michael Jordan and or GOAT, greatest of all time, in snowboarding, both male and female. Who you got?
Oh, shit.
Just got to throw a couple names up
there.
Don't overthink it.
I know. I just try to go back to when I remember the names, and when I remember, like, I don't know. I think, something about the style of Jamie Lynn got me pretty. I already talked about that.
It's a good answer.
Yeah, Jamie's a great answer.
Well, because it wasn't the coolest of the places. And I like that. I wasn't as big a fan of Transworld, and as excited as I was to see, Engelsman get to go to Russia. I don't get to go to Russia. What do I give a fuck? I mean, I was excited to see my friend go. I remember he went to this Russian trip, or something. Snowboarder showed Idaho. I could go to Idaho. I saw where Louis Fountain was hitting a little berm, whatever. I can do that, whatever these things are. So I was always more into the people that were just sort of like, oh, he lives here too. So for
relatable
for females, I remember really digging the riding of Hannah Beeman.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Now listen, I don't know if that falls into the right category, but she was cool, and she talked to me. I'd see her with Pat and stuff. They were buds. But she ripped, man.
She's been a guest on the show. She's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's what comes to mind. And I know maybe I could go digging for something else, but I just remember her being cool to us when I went to Mammoth this one time.
Anna's a perfect answer.
Next question, GOAT of design. Michael Jordan of design.
Oh, man.
That's a good question.
Let's see here.
Try to keep it under like a minute.
Okay, would you just relax with the fucking
time constraints?
Okay. Yeah. Well,
try to keep it under 60 minutes with the answer on this. 60 to 65 minutes.
Okay, everybody. Listen. Take your comedy on the fucking road. At Salt Lake at the Laugh Barn up in fucking Ogden tonight.
Wise Guys is actually the local comedy club.
Okay. So yes. I think my favorite graphic designer of all time is a guy by the name of Saul Bass. First of all, the Bell telephone logo, like classic stuff that you can recognize on a telephone pole from a mile away. All the principal stuff we're talking about, right? Small, big, whatever. Corporate design. But also, that's the guy behind like really playful, movie posters, where Bunny Lake is missing, or Vertigo, or Exodus. Look these things up. Classic things. The Shining, I think, is what he did the poster for The Shining. I'm pretty sure he did. But really fun, playful type and fun little illustrations. So listen, these guys weren't just one kind of thing, like super corporate, schmorporate, whatever. He was a maker for to solve the problem. So if it was some sort of cultural thing for some sort of peace movement, they went and looked at the forums and made something for that. That's really interesting to me, right? Because what the internet has allowed us to do is boil people down to exactly what they do perfect, and then they just do that. But my favorite graphic designers are able, when people are ripping them off, they're able to morph and go on to the next damn thing. Not just artists or graphic designers, musicians. Things, makers, probably shredders, if I went and looked, and still knew that world, but they're able to change when things get a little weird and shift, downshift, upshift, whatever, just pivot, I guess is one of the cool words. That's interesting to me because that's, when you look at his body of work, this Mr. Saul Bass, it was all over the place. And yet there was always when you go really clean with this stuff, really super modern, crispy, thick lining kind of shit, it's some of the greatest shit ever. You go the other way and I can't make that stuff. And that's and then again, I just don't, I don't know the history of graphic design. He might have had 50 people working for him, might have just been him. When you look at my shit, it's me sitting there. There's no team, it's me. So I hope you dig it. Just understand that, I got my limitations. I try to do my best, but it's like sometimes you look at some of that old classic work and it's like, that wasn't even him that did it. It's just his name that pushed it ahead. And you're just like, oh, it was her chained to a desk? Whoever made the Nike logo, there's that scary story of that woman in Portland, that did it for like $20 or something, whatever that was.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, look it up. It's like a little tale, from graphic design. But I just look at these things and it's like, I like work that came before me, still works, and still works today. Mm-hmm. And there's stuff that slipped through the cracks.
Timeless stuff.
Yeah, because certain things are only for that era. Bands are only for that era, and yet design in a weird way. So when you're thinking about that, it's like stop signs. Those are meant to communicate. Customs forms are meant to communicate peace on your shirt, on a sticker, or me just kind of saying, hey, that communicates quickly. I'm chill,
I'm chill, man. I'm chill.
Or used in a shitty way. Nixon doing this bullshit, I'm not a crook or whatever. That's, used in a shitty way. So, yeah.
Okay, last hot take would be...
I hope these are good answers.
They're great answers. They're phenomenal answers. Just noticing, this isn't even a fucking hot take. We're whatever. But you are a person that loves banter. I've noticed. You like to chop it up. You seem like you could, sit down with a cup of coffee and basically just chop it up with anybody about just about anything. Now, who's your favorite person to bullshit with?
Favorite person to bullshit with? Oh, my mom. My dad, I miss my dad, of course. When you come down from, the high mountain of that, I can go pretty deep with my girl. My girl Leah is a very, she's limitless in her curiosity. I hope that's a compliment. It is, because she's always learning some new, she told me all about the Roman Empire. Roman Empire. Trying to get a goddamn ad free formatted for some Adobe product I'm working on or something, whatever. What are you talking about? She's just got this like sort of insatiable sort of hunger for this kind of shit that's really interesting to me all of a sudden. Like she'll send me down these rabbit holes. I learn from her, like a little encyclopedia, something. Pat Bridges is always really fun. I know that's a very snowboard answer, but Pat, they really broke the mold with that guy. These are my friends. I really go deep with Pat. Evan Rose is always really fun to talk to. And I consider both these guys, really good friends. But yeah, those are, it's kind of like, it's like if you look in your phone, your top 10, it's pretty easy for me to get right there, and say, yeah, they're in my top 10. I mean, there's a reason why. I have a buddy, my buddy Dale Allen Dixon is just just weird and ironic and funny, and knows a lot of pop culture references from the 90s. He's maybe a year older than I am, but he's, he lives in Portland again now, and he's just so busy I don't ever get to see him. I'm 2 miles from him, and it's fucked. So Dale, get over to the house, come to the backyard. So that's who I think of. It's nothing all that. I mean, I've had some incredible conversations with some of these graphic design people on podcasts or some of this kind of stuff. Or I got to be in Marin. That was pretty cool. And that was
right. I saw
fucking
that.
terrifying because I said something about skiers and it pissed off some skiers, whatever I said. But, in a lot of ways we did invent snowboarding. You know what that means? It's like, didn't like come up with a way to, here's a one. No, we went and took that plank and now somehow got it to the point where you can still make a living at it. That's pretty sweet.
Mm-hmm.
We were right there on the forefront of that shit, whatever. So, yeah.
I got a little bit of a freaking, I guess, we normally steer clear of politics, to be totally honest with you, but we're going to get into something that, I don't know if this is politics or not, but here we go. This is something I think is cool. I'm just curious about personally. So when I look at your graphic design stuff, I notice you have a lot of like American flags and things like that in your design, right? And you appear to love your country in that sense. Sure. And it's very unpopular to be patriotic amongst a certain, especially like, let's say Portland, and you're very anti-Trump too, and it's just kind of an interesting, like, I just want to hear you elaborate on both of those things and see where that goes.
It's a really tough one because right now, and rightfully so, the American flag is a sign of oppression to our own people who live here. So we kind of got to put it on hold because in the last disgusting 5 years since that motherfucker, went on there for a game show, it's been co-opted by the worst elements. So the American flag used to mean this place of immigrants, possibility, fairness, equality, American dream, not this, we're going to take it back to the old ways. And that is so thinly veiled of the ways of like cops beating you up. Keep on going. People being subjugated. Keep on going. Go all the way back. Fuck that America, right? Fuck that idea of America. So it's not lost on me that it's a prickly thing to show stars and bars. But my love for it comes from the idea, and I know that I don't know how to even talk about it, privileged, we'll just say, that America, what it meant for me was going all the way out west into this beautiful Northwest to be a snowboarder. I got to work all summer long, wash dishes, take all that money out west, and spend it on snowboarding. Like, who the fuck gets to do that? You know what I mean? One of the things that scared me about snowboarding was the après quality. These are rich kids, man. You run into it in the Telluride. Like, you motherfucker, you didn't work all summer. Your mom and dad are just popping for this shit. I know you're not that. A couple hours we've been bullshitting. Pat Bridges is not that. But we ran into it. And that's when I was losing heart for it. It's like, in our, where I'm from, snowboarding for us, you just have to get the board and then it's democratized. You don't have to have access up to some heli, go all the way to the top. Fucking heli skiing. We used to have a broom, it'd snow a couple inches, you're East Coast, push it over into one lane, have a little booter at a golf course, and hit a booter and have a car parked and get footage. We used to do this. My buddy Bry Elshire used to edit off of the television. It was fucking incredible.
Oh yeah.
I hope he's got that shit somewhere. Okay, so to come crashing back to where these forms, it represents snow and it represents possibility and represents going all the way to Alaska and washing dishes and elevating myself to where I could buy a computer and then go learn and then make a living and kind of help retire my mom and dad, right? Shit like that. But it's a hard time. Now, I'll tell a funny story to kind of illustrate this. I got to do a stamp a couple years ago, and it's a patriotic workhorse. So when you look it up, it's called the Star Ribbon. It's just one of these kind of cool star things. I don't know if I have it on me in my stuff here. But, look it up, and it was a stamp for America. So that is one of my graphic design dreams. The coolest part about it, everyone needs a stamp. You do, I do. Someone who is having a rough go, they can get a stamp and use a stamp to pay their stuff or whatever, or get a paycheck from some assistance or something. They need a stamp. It's a perfect democratization of design. Everyone gets to enjoy the art on that thing. It's not just those who can afford it, right? So I am super proud to work for my country. Check it out. Some stupid Trumper uncle of mine or something. These are dinosaurs. They get to use stamps too. So it's not just for the liberal schmiberal blue, whatever it is. It's for all of America, because that's good design that works for all of America. Okay, so a stamp is very weird that way. It's surreal that way. When I made that stamp, it just goes out into the ether. They did 400 million stamps because they come on rolls of 5,500. So when you get junk mail, you're like flip, house refi, flip. It's got, you might see one of my little workhorses in the corner because it comes off a roll of 5,500. Bam, bam, bam. They send these things out and it's a percentage game. Send out 1,000, 7 bite. We make 20, 40, 50 grand, whatever. I don't know. So when I made that thing, the stamp community comes after me. What else do you have that's inspired like this? Stars and bars and things. I love patriotic stamps. America is fucked, man. America is fucked. I've been watching this program called The Underground Railroad that is breathtaking the way it's shot. Just as an artist and nerd to appreciate that, but some of the hardest shit I've ever had to watch. It's terrifying what we don't know. Now it's been sort of whitewashed into like some sort of a palatable way to talk about such a horrific thing. No, it needs to be exposed for what it was forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, and dealt with. So watching that and like understanding that America then, man, fuck that Confederate flag. So whatever, it means a certain thing. Well, I made this one thing that just said 1776, and it's got these thick lines. I made a patch, a sticker, and a whatever poster. They're spoils. They're B-sides from when I was doing the stamp. But who's using 1776 right now. Don't tread on me. These paramilitary Proud Boys and shit. So I got to kind of wait, When I was a kid and you saw my favorite logo of all time, the bicentennial star, it meant that America made it to 200 years, the bicentennial. It meant a place of, progress, that were modernized. A couple of years after that, you saw the space shuttle. It was on the space program, this incredible logo. So I was raised around that stuff. It meant possibility. It meant evening the field. It meant that all, I come from northern Michigan. It wasn't all that diverse, but, things were getting better and better and better. And some of the good old boy shit that we saw growing up was less and less in fashion. And by the way, you couldn't talk that way anymore. Out with that old and with the new. And if you don't like it, you die off with it, So those things represent a certain thing to me, but it's not everyone. So I have to be careful with that stuff. Because, in Portland, Oregon, where, I live, I've had some spicy emails that say, what are you doing with this shit? I mean, you do know what this stuff is attached to. And it's like, it was not attached that way in 2002 when I made that thing at all. But I get it. So, it's just a really prickly thing because, in the last disgusting 5 years, it's been co-opted by bullies who hide behind it and use it as a weapon, quite literally, stabbing people with the flag and shit on the way up those Capitol steps. And I don't want anything to do with that shit. I'm ashamed of that stuff now because, America for me was somewhere where our ancestors came here from Poland and could find a better life. It wasn't easy, but that's at least our story. My next buddy over, America's pretty shitty to his family. So, there's been political things made with that stuff that are really interesting and that you see people, change the colors. And I love all that kind of stuff, to be more multicultural, to be more, shit's changing, shit's changing. And I have to change too. And I have to be sensitive when I make those things. Because also what happens is you get this kind of sense of people like, fuck it, I'm showing it. You don't like it? That's kind of the same thinking with some of these other good old boys. You don't like it? Love it or leave it. Mm-hmm. No, I can change. Mm-hmm. And maybe we ride this barbaric stubbornness out, you know, this barbaric lack of creativity and this just low-hanging fruit of like the other. I don't like you because you'd vote this way. You know, this low-hanging, it's easy. That shit's easy. It's just dumb and tribal. We ride that shit out, and maybe it can get back to this place of like, all right, we got past those fucks. Now it can mean again that you can come here, you can get help. If you've been fucked with for generations, this thing means you're going to get some assistance. We're making right on some of those things. But hey, you got to go put your time in too. You know, nothing's quite a free ride. I know that's very idealistic, but my mind goes there. But also, you know, it just hurts to have someone say, you know what that thing means to me? I'm a vet. You know what that thing means to me? It's just like, oh, fuck, man. It's some stars and bars that say America. We all live here. It doesn't say this. It says this. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's a really interesting question. And you see me squirm because I don't know what to make of it. It's like I made all that 1776 shit. And a buddy was like, I can't believe you're making this. And it was like, I wanted to make merch for the stamp community.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think that was a extremely eloquent answer. Honestly, I think that was really, really well. You perfectly answered. Buds, do you have a Patreon question?
Just another personal question.
Personal question, yeah.
So, you know, in the graphic world, your style is very recognizable. You know, I can see something and know that you did it.
Thank you.
And as you talk about, you know, you're one of the graphic designers of our time. Is there a name for your style in the art world, in the graphic community? And if not, should we name it? I don't know. Big D style? I mean, what are we talking, you know?
I get it's hard to think about because you see people bitch about it, like, oh, you're doing that Draplin thing. And it's like, whoa. There's a little more to that than maybe why, but that's just me being defensive to my own shit. Well, first of all, you want to make things that people like. I don't know if I have a name or a movement, but I will say this much is one of the greatest answers I ever gave when this kid, very earnest, on a podcast said, so Aaron Draplin, what is your legacy in graphic design? You know, and I said, well, I want to be a skin tag on graphic design. I want to be a mole. I want to be just a crusty little something you have to pick off of graphic design. I don't need to be rooted in the middle of it. You know, I can just be this weird little thing that got away with it, loved his buddies, took care of the people around him, took care of his family, and enjoyed it along the way. You know, I always talk when on these podcasts or on the road, remember stereo equipment, and there's like the equalizer. All the buttons and shit go up. You have that on your phone now? There's probably an app for that. I don't know. But I remember dinking with that stuff when I was a kid. And, you know, I look back at my career in these last bunch of years, and it's like a lot of the things were pretty high up, as in I got to work for people I loved, high up. I made good money up, you know. When you do a job and they're like, by the way, we have a quick turnaround, it kind of goes down low. But you just have to roll with it. When I get to look back at whatever goofy little legacy and I make all these jokes about being, some goddamn, pimple on the ass of graphic design, I'm just not concerned with trying to like root myself into the middle of it or whatever, because I know I got a little part in that thing, but that was never supposed to happen. And the fact that it did, it's all icing on the cake. If it didn't happen, I still would have made my money and I still would have got ahead and I still would have just busted through it because I didn't have any choice. So when I look back at that, whatever gradation of that, and say, damn, on my little equalizer, it was pretty high. I got to know Evan Rose's and Larry Nunez's and these creatures along the way. That wasn't the weirdo that you don't want to be around all summer long. I experienced some of that shit, I'm just so thankful for that, So be it the van, be it the shop in the backyard, be it this privilege of people pointing mics at me and shit and cameras and stuff, which is always so weird, Like, that didn't have to happen. I still would have had a really, they would have all been pretty high. So, this just becomes, I don't know. It's like another big addition to the stereo of like, I don't even know what this thing does. I'm just trying to enjoy it and be good about it and share it,
I don't know what this thing does, but yeah.
You have to understand, people do.
Yeah.
And then you run into this thing where guys are like, why don't you have a YouTube? You know what you're losing? I don't give a fuck, man. I got enough. How big of a bite do you need to take off? You know what I mean? At what point are you just...
When is enough,
Well, see, that's America for me too.
Yeah.
That's America for me too, because for every, I don't know, for everyone I saw who went big, I loved to see people stay small and just do it and stay small and stay humble and sometimes have a harder go. But sometimes the bigger went too. I mean, it happened in snowboarding too when I was a kid. This thing is going big. They're the next big thing. Every time that Nike threw money at snowboarding and it was like, come up and own the whole fucking thing and then go away. Because that's the power of some little shitty thing. I don't know. Dingleberry Snowboards. Still selling a couple here.
Good name. That's a good
Dingleberry
name.
Snowboards.
I'm on their team next year. But
on the board of directors.
Yeah, Nike would leave us crippled after they took all the money back out.
Well,
leave friends unsponsored, and
now that's a horrible thing to say about Nike in Portland, Oregon. But here's the deal: when I saw them come and give to the community in skateboarding, own the whole world in skateboarding. I know I got to do the Janoski shoe. That thing's been on everything all over the world. Jocks down in Key West were wearing those fucking shoes. Chad looking dudes where it's like, we're not going to hang with those guys, but they were wearing those. So that goes pretty deep. But I will say, to see those guys build skate parks, do things, they fucking better be, because they're making the money, And that got my vote of like, all right, it's cool. They're not just rolling in and trying to own it. Private sessions, private things. I remember a name that, remember Michael Chuck.
Yes.
Where it was like, oh, this is the next thing. He's good, and he's on Nike. I remember reading about this and looking at the things, and it went away.
Mm-hmm. Nike ACG. I remember that.
But did it go away because of his ability? Did it go away because of a paycheck? Well, who knows the answer. But those things are always too good to be true or something.
And I guess at least they put the money in while they did,
Yeah, I mean, I get it. By the way, you can always make a better snowboard boot, sure, yeah.
Another question I have, because we've been going for a minute here. We're probably going to start to have to wrap this thing
All
up,
right.
put a bow on it. But I just got to ask something, because I like talking about inspiration, right? Because I think there's this kind of woo-woo, like, oh, I'm just like looking for inspiration, or like inspiration just hits me. But like, I kind of come from the thought of like, you kind of got to hunt it down a little bit. And
oh yeah.
And I know that you are pretty ferocious. I don't know if that's the right word in hunting down inspiration. Do you want to talk about the process of looking for inspiration and actually actively seeking it out?
Sure. Here comes another hour tacked on the thing. Like, well, I think
keep it under 4 hours right now.
I think the thing to kind of go after here is, I watched my dad do it before the internet. And you would go find it in antique malls and backyards at a garage sale, and it was kind of crusty. Now, if you go higher than that and go to a museum, you find inspiration there, and it could be from, Middle Ages or something from 2,000 years ago before, whatever. And it's the idea of just seeking it out. You find it in a book, a library. I remember in high school, I had this, you go to the lunchroom for your lunch hour, but I would go to the library and just spend my 45 minutes there. It's like I would wolf down the sandwich. Why just sit and bullshit? My friends don't even do it. They go skate. They go skip school. I can't really do that, I'd go to the library. I started on one end and just worked my way through, over the course of a year. We had this big, awesome library. No one would even be in there, and I just sit there. You have more room to sit and everything else. So I was curious. So here's the thing. I watched my dad do that. It landed in me. I watched my mom with her records and things and have a love for music. A love to find new music. That I got that from her. I have a pretty big appetite for rock and roll, and we'll just say a big record collection. But with the internet, now that everything is just a click away, it's weird how it aggregates into the same old bunch of sameness. And that's why, these TikToks and stuff as a cultural sort of like study, like, isn't it funny that we all saw the same little funny video? But if you learn how to go and look, you can find some weird shit in that same platform. But if you just kick back and let it be delivered to you, maybe there's something behind it. It's a drink, it's a clothing, it's a Kanye, it's a whatever the fuck, who knows? It's some whatever. But it's fed to you And that always freaked me out because I come from skateboarding and snowboarding and punk rockery, and just for the 1000th fucking time. Punk rock. I'm not talking spikes. I'm not talking mohawks. I'm not talking insufferable Southern California fucking fucking bands of fucking no. It's thinking for yourself. It's Fugazi. Okay, that's it. Whatever Fugazi means to you guys listening or whatever, it's fucking Fugazi. They did it their own way, at their own deal, and you got to go see them for $6. That's punk rock. It's not, oi, whatever the fucking horse shit. Okay, it's not the fucking Offspring. Ugh, insufferable. They're probably a sponsor of this thing today too. I apologize to the Offspring, and I'm sorry that middle age has been so rough on you guys. But anyway, just keep rocking. There it is. But the idea is, if you really to boil it down, you have to know how to go look. Now in graphic design, you can't just look at the aggregated shit. You'll just get the same old same. If you know how to look, and that I know we can't leave homes in the house right now, but if you just go to an estate sale, you're going to see some stuff. You're going to get weird. If you go to a library, you're going to see some things that you didn't see. You got to reach out. You can't just see it on the screen of your phone sometimes. You can see a lot. So when kids ask me, we are locked down, how do I get away from this phone in a pandemic? It's like, go on eBay. Go on eBay. Get weird. You can't control what's going to go on there. You got some old timer trying to sell something creepy, and then some young timer trying to sell something hot and hip, scams or whatever. You can just see a lot of weird shit. So I go junking virtually, looking at like even Etsy. You got some character who found some creepy thing at a estate sale. They're trying to resell it. They have to polish it all up. No one ever thinks of it that way. It's like, it's not just a buy. You're there just to take screen grabs and file it away in my junk so I can go look at other thick lines or funny vintage t-shirts or whatever. So it's knowing how to look beyond the easy, which is this aggregated sameness, clicks, licks, likes, links, all that kind of shit. You can get weird out there, So I'm very perplexed by my Instagram because I've just clicked on enough fucking James Hetfields from Metallica my shit is filled with James Hetfield. How much more Metallica can you take? I like the first 4 records. That's all I can stomach. But I don't need to keep rehashing that. But here's the thing: those are easy things to click on. Why do I get stuff with lots of boobs and ass and stuff? Because you click on that out of curiosity, and then it turns into your thing. So it's like, I'll stop.
Algorithm.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just stop and be like, I got to go look at some art for a couple of days because I clicked on some like pop culture dance bullshit, and now it's down this thing where these like girls are showing their ass. I mean, whatever. It's just kind of like just chumpy, Ugh, yawn. That's not anything new, So it's just you have to learn how to learn. You have to learn how to find. You have to remind yourself that you got to get away from that stuff. So I don't know, being out here to drive across America, I've already seen things that could have been sitting there for 20 years or 2 days that surprised me. Could have been just because it was broken. Could have been because it's weathered. Could have been because it's brand new and they're trying something new. That was still interesting, and I did not see that sitting on my ass back in Portland, hiding, locked down. So. I know it's a long answer.
It's a great answer.
But, it's just, shit. It's out there. It's out there.
Another thing I want to ask you, too, and this is my own personal take. I've come to realize that so much inspiration comes from banter. Like, from sitting there. We'll be sitting in our lobby, drinking coffee. People sitting around talking. Not a formal meeting or anything. Just water cooler talk, whatever you want to call it. I'll be at my, with my friends. Like, when I'm sitting around with people like Eastone, our friend Greg, like there's these people all of a sudden, and I would say you're talking about visual inspiration. I guess maybe this is also idea inspiration too, but they're kind of all under the same umbrella. But I feel like so much inspiration just comes from banter for me, like just talking to the squad.
Yeah, well, I one of the things I would do at my last studio. So I work in my backyard now, right? So it's me back there 97% of the time. Lee comes back there for a couple hours a day to do the merch. Sometimes 8 hours, sometimes an hour. I'm back there all the time. When I was in the shop with my 2 older brothers, Goo and Dave, here's the deal. When you have a project and you're looking at it to try to, is it good or is it bad? It's a little bit of feedback or something. 6 eyeballs are better than my 2. So you just, you understand that, like, there's a dialogue there, and there's like a sense of like, holy shit, I have been quite literally at the 12-inch mark, but Dave at the 12-foot mark saw something he didn't see because it's just his vantage, sort of viewpoint changed. Now let's say Goo, my other partner, is 12,000 feet up, looking at it from just a different perspective. And there's something to be had for each one of those. And it's like, I was just like right up against the thing, like I always am. So there's, there's little tricks I can do. This is just visual stuff. There's little tricks I can do where it's like, stand up and walk 20 feet away from your design and see how does it still look. You can also just do this, zoom in, zoom out. Now that said, same sort of shit can apply to a way to come up with a new way to do your podcast. Sit with a bunch of buddies. What works, what doesn't work. Fuck, that's funny. Write it down in your field notes, right? Because it'll come out of that when you're comfortable, when you're loose. We used to start the magazines, and we just kind of sit around and talk about it, and we'd have these big battles about covers because, of course, Stone wants a cover, and someone's, whoever's got the thing, we're battling the angles, we're battling politics, we're battling all sorts of shit. And we have these big debates, and it was really great because, we could kind of get the spirit of the mag banged out. That's no different than sketching in the field notes. That's just no different. We're building the architecture to go off and just produce now.
Yeah.
And it came out of sitting around and dicking around at Larry's house, and Larry, of course, had a white couch. Like, who the fuck has a white couch? But Larry, in the Scarfacian sort of attempt to, to trick out this place, had a white couch, and I display myself all over that. But Larry had a pool table, and we'd all go over there and maybe get like some like fried chicken or something, and I'll hang out either after the mag and talk about the next one, and you're like tricking yourself. You still got to work. Because I remember we'd go to these things for Nixon watches. You got to fly down to Encinitas, and you got to sit in the beach, and one guy's got a clipboard, and he's going through all the points, and it was like pulling fucking teeth. Man, you're talking about watches. It should be the funnest thing in the world, But I get it. They're going through all their initiatives, and some people are just nodding off and shit. They're just there. You get out of the office, and it's like they're in this big comfy couch, and you're on the beach and all this. I just always would wonder, like, is there just a way to do this that doesn't feel so forced? That's like anything. I don't want to force myself to have to try to come up with something fun for design. I don't want to have to force myself to spitball new fun ideas. So how do you teach yourself and remind yourself how to learn? Stop yourself and go, I'm going to remind myself that we can just stop, put the computer away, sit down, get a coffee, and just bullshit. Mm-hmm. It's hard to do. You got to get people in here. They got, or get on a Zoom chat, whatever. So more eyeballs is always better. New perspectives,
Well, damn, we've been doing it for a while. Before we wrap this thing up, do you want to throw any thank yous out?
Oh, man, I could start at the top. Well, I'd just like to thank my mom, all my little sisters and my little Moonbeam Lee, for being so patient with me and, watching every little thing. By the way, there's no control out here on the road. Last night I went to In-N-Out, and it's like my first time eating a cheeseburger. That's what it looked like in that van. Like, like a fucking dog. Like a dog destroyed. Like first time eating a meal, just like looking around, and shit was like that. And, I'm fucking 47 years old, but, her being concerned, like, hey, just chill tonight. We're having something green and having a piece of chicken or whatever. I really appreciate that sort of roadmap. But, of course, I have to thank snowboardy kind of stuff, Union and Cole for giving me a lot of years of life, an opportunity to build, and also space. Because that whole time I wasn't just 2-time, and I was 7-time. I was doing all sorts of shit. Obviously Mark Sullivan and Bridges and Baker and Chief and all these characters that we got to know from the magazines, those are brothers. They introduced me to Evan Rose. These are friends, whether or not snowboarding that we connected on, those are friends forever. And, they open a lot of doors because, once I got done with the magazines, I got a lot of work from just the snowboard industry after that of like everything from like, hey, just reformat this ad for us because our kid's out for a couple of days. Like that was all good work, So, I don't know, as I go down the line, it's like, I just want to thank the fucking universe, for carving out a little path for me. It wasn't always right, but or easy or any of that kind of stuff. But I'll be thankful all the way across Wyoming tonight. Because you get to drive across the whole, expanse and think about the history and think about the weirdness and mining and all this other shit that's going on across, very desolate southern Wyoming. There's not much going on out there. And just the ability to get from when I leave this thing to get 500, the ability to leave this thing and go 500 miles in a direction tonight. You do that across Europe, you're at the bottom of it. There's a weird, America is a weird thing. You can see all kinds of different people in those 500 miles. And I just, so I don't know, I thank the immediate folks around me, my little nephew, Oliver, for being such an inspiration, for us, all of us. But on a larger level, it's just the ability to get away with this stuff. I don't know what that means. I don't know if I manifested that. Some parts I did. But I know there's luck involved in things, and hopefully, so far so good. We have a new website coming. That's coming. That should be able to slow me down in some respects, because the goal here is that little tiny pinky of the stuff that's the most volatile, client work. I have 9 other fingers to deal with. I don't even need to do that shit anymore, but that's not the way it goes. They dangle it, and I'm all over it because we're trained that way. So, I even have to thank that for people who trust me with their stuff, be it a shitty little band for a couple $100 or a shitty big band for like a couple more zeros, shit happens. So, and just shit, thanks for making room for me on this. I think we got all the names covered here.
Oh yeah.
Who didn't we talk about? Let me go down the line here. Let me pull out a deep cut here. Did I talk about Jared Eberhard? I think I did.
I think you mentioned him.
He is a fucking champion of the world. Maybe we talk about Raunch Records. One time I came through, I was a kid, and there was one of many sales I come to find out at Raunch Records. They're always kind of going out of business or something. But I got in there thinking, this sumbitch is done. He's pulling the plug. It was 95, and I bought about 30 tapes. I brought Jawbreaker. I bought a bunch of stuff. Well, it turns out, all these years later, those are all worth like $50 and $40 and $30 a piece. They're just my tapes. And they have the little marked down thing that say $1.
Nice.
Is that still a thing in town? Because I know it's...
Oh, yeah. It's still going. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Because
skate shop.
Well, some years I would come through here and it would be gone, And then other years, when I came here the first time as a kid in 1990 on our way to California, I was with my parents. So it's not really like I had already, my going west for us really started at 93 when I was 19. But I came through and I went to Milo. Just to look at all the snowboard stuff. But I was more into skateboarding. They were all kind of shred stuff. And it was all the latest cool shit. It was in August, so they were gearing up. But I was saving my money because I was going to Skates on Hate to get all the shit I needed. I knew right down to the damn sticker what I wanted. And I got to tell you, when you get to Skates on Hate, right there on Hate Ashbury, right there, it's just this door and this shitty little... I built it up so big in my head that this is the mecca of skateboarding out of Thrasher magazine. It was a dude behind a counter with a little shitty warehouse behind him. He couldn't find half the stuff because just a dude digging it out of boxes. It was like about maybe a 1.5 size your merch room. Seriously, Skates on Hate. These big ads, remember? In the big, okay. I had this fucking laundry list. I had saved all my money. I want 2 of these decks, 2 sets of indie, whatever. I was just going to load up. Got maybe a third of it. Couldn't even get it. That night, we drove out of town, my parents. We went north. We went to Sessions. Sessions in, what is it, Sacramento?
Yeah.
I want to say. And I got all the shit there. So anyway, they had everything. When I got to meet Joel Gomez, I remember telling him that story. And he was just like, wow. People are asking him for sponsorships. Hey, sponsor me. Come and deal with one of our band, like one of your bands, whatever. I don't ask him for shit. I just was like, I had your T-shirts, man. Thank you. You guys could always get T-shirts from Sessions, anything you wanted, So, all right. Let's just be done. No more. Release me from this bondage of content.
I'll tell you what, Draplin, thank you so much for coming on.
Chop it up into something nice.
Oh, yeah. We'll razor blade tool that
Get
thing.
it down to 15 minutes. Just
15.
Thank you guys so much for listening, tuning in each and every week. We got another episode coming for you guys next Wednesday. We are over and out from the bomb hole.